Good morning. It is time to get this thing started. We're only about 25 hours late, I think, but I do appreciate all you guys being here today as opposed to yesterday, changing your plans and being here for this important event. Thank each and every one of you for being here. I especially want to thank all of our veterans who are here with us today. If you are a veteran, yes, thank you. Thank you, veterans. Thank you. We're here to honor you. That's what this is about. So if you are a veteran, make sure you see Melissa. She's got tickets here. These tickets are going to be good for one of those bags over there on the table at the end of the event. So I want to make sure all the veterans in attendance get a bag. Please make sure you see her. Also, Teresa is selling raffle tickets. So if you would like to get in on the raffle, we've got some prizes over there. Lots of gift bags, a skateboard, a hemp book bag, and a few other things that are going to be raffled off. So make sure you get in on that. My name is James Meisner. I am the founder at One Plant. Thank you. We're dedicated to try to end cannabis prohibition everywhere, so, and with a special emphasis on helping our veterans. I'm also a U.S. Coast Guard veteran, and now I'm going to have to read this off, so bear with me, otherwise we'll be out in left field and nobody will find their way home. So we're here today to honor all the veterans who are here today and all the veterans everywhere. But we're also here to recognize and bring awareness to the tragic fact that is nearly 22 veterans committing suicide every single day. That's one veteran a little over every hour of every day. That's over 8,000 veterans a year. Now to put that in perspective, that's more veterans that will die this year than died in the last 20 years in Iraq and Afghanistan service members. That's more this year. Think about that on a yearly basis. And it's time that we recognize and correct this sad statistic. So thank you all again for being here. We're going to learn today a little bit more about how there is a better way. That's this year's slogan. And the better way is a natural way. We have some amazing speakers here today that I will introduce here in just a few moments. But first, I think, Melissa, can you grab Victor?
Oh, yeah.
I should have had that ready, sorry. First, I would like to make a couple of thank yous. So the Golden Drops Cafe has hosted this event each and every year for the last 6 years, with the exception of 2020 because of COVID. And as soon as Victor gets out, I want to make sure that they get thanked.
He's coming. He's finishing a coffee.
Okay.
Sorry, I wasn't prepared either.
Anyway, so make sure you get tickets. Did I mention tickets? Raffle tickets.
We should name them Raphael tickets in honor of Victor.
I just want to thank James. Yeah, I just want to thank James. I think James doesn't get enough recognition for this.
All right, James!
Thank you guys, I appreciate that. But what I'd really like to do is thank Victor, Mr. Victor Ramirez. Victor is the owner of the Golden Drops Cafe. He has allowed us to do this event, like I said, each and every year for the last 6 years, I think, at least 5 times. One year we didn't have an in-person event, but he's graciously hosted this thing. And this year I asked him to be a little bit more involved, and we asked if he could possibly cater the event, and he was like, absolutely. So we're gonna have some food set up here in just a little bit. I hope everybody enjoys it. Just be respectful of the speakers because we didn't gap out a time for eating, so just, you know, make your way up, get a plate, go back, have a seat, enjoy yourself. Also, please make sure you tip. You know, this food is paid for, but please tip the establishment. Make sure you guys show your gratitude. But thank you, Victor, so much. Melissa has a token of our gratitude.
We just wanted to present you from the veterans community. Sorry, I forget you can't hear me. We just want to present something small to you, and thank you for always allowing us to come in and take over like the military we are. Just a little something special from us, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's a surprise. We were not expecting this. But first of all, thanks to God for having us in this area where we can meet on daily basis beautiful people, beautiful individuals like you. The motivation of us being here, leading this business, is sitting within you right now, my mother, right there. She's the one who every year tells us we have to get really good food for our folks. So thank you very much, Mommy. And thank you. I remember the first time James approached us here 6 years ago, I think it was, to celebrate or to commemorate the Veterans Day. We are humble to host this activity every year, and we really love and appreciate what you, the military of this country, the veterans of this country, have done for our freedom. Thank you very much. And thank you for this. I'm gonna get this on my mom's hands because she says it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victor, and thank you, Mama. I think Mama's hands made that food with us with love today, so
Thank you, Mama.
we're gonna have some great food.
And enjoy, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. And remember, like I said, make sure you tip, show your gratitude. They have been wonderful to us for 6 years, so make sure you tip. With that said, you can't have catering without someone paying for the food, so we were very lucky to have this next person work it out so that we could have this event catered. And I would like to thank the Cannabis Total Wellness Collective and Mr. Neil Schloss. And I would also like to thank Zen in the Car and Mr. Daniel Louis Crumpton. Thank you, Daniel. And I know we've kind of already got this thing started, but I think Daniel would like to set this thing off with a prayer this morning. If you would like to come on up. Daniel Crumpton, thank you again. Enjoy the food.
Wow, this isn't triggering at all. I'm Daniel Lewis Crumpton. I'm a novelist, a political activist, a blogger, a caregiver, a musician, but today I wear the title of a minister. And so I would like to open this ceremony in a word of prayer. You can bow your head if you like, but me personally, I do not hide my face from God, and I suggest and encourage all of you veterans and proud activists here to not hide your face from God either. And so, though the Most High has many different names and many different aspects, I think it's appropriate to call on His divine power in the name of Yeshua the Christ today, because Yeshua the Christ came up from a people who were oppressed by a tyrannical empire and a corrupt religious system. And He watched His people who merely wanted to be free. And He wanted to encourage them with power and authority to stand up in their rights and assume their freedom and not ask for assistance. And because of His kick-ass activism, because He was a political activist rock star, He told the church and the state to kiss His ass and encouraged everyone else to follow suit and do the same. He was inspired by that divine providence that I call down upon on all of us today to speak those words and to live that life out to the point of being nailed to a tree. And he was such a rock star that 3 days later he rebelled against that and told the church and the state to kick rocks again. And he set an example that followed a few centuries later, that divine providence that spoke to him to be a rebel in the face of tyranny, to our founding fathers. And He spoke in their minds and their hearts that divine providence to draft this document, which is a consolidation of the life and example that Yeshua the Christ set as an activist. Because our founders knew that the archetype of the Christ was an innocent man that never did anything wrong and was oppressed unjustly by the government. And so the Bill of Rights is a founding father's answer to protecting the sovereignty, the freedom of one innocent man. And that is this document is the oath that all of you soldiers, you're still soldiers, you may not wear your uniform, but you're still soldiers. You took an oath to this, and this is a spiritual document, not a political or a legal document. Spiritual, freedom, which He set the example for. And so I call on the spirit that inspired him, inspires you, on all of us, and all of the speakers who come here after me, to speak boldly and speak solutions, because we all know what the problems are. We would just be preaching to the choir about the problems with politics. And so I call that divine power on each and every one of you to speak truth, speak solutions, and fast. And it's in Yeshua the Christ's name I pray. Amen. And to all of you, namaste.
Amen. Thank you, Daniel. So, once again, I just want to remind everybody, please, if you're a veteran, get with Melitza, get a ticket so that you can get a bag at the end of the event, and also get with Teresa because we have a raffle that's going to happen towards the end as well. So get your raffle tickets, and don't forget to tip. The food should be out shortly. As soon as the food comes out, they're going to start serving it. Just leisurely get up, get your food as you will. Just be respectful of the people who are going to be on the microphone, please. So without any further ado, let's get on with the speaking portion of the event. I want to introduce the first speaker of today. He is a U.S. Navy veteran. He's a good friend of mine, and he's the executive director for Peachtree Normal, Mr. Ryan Ralston.
Good morning. I think it's still morning. As a veteran, I just want to step forward first and foremost and just thank James for putting this together. It really goes, the work that he does behind the scenes sometimes goes unnoticed, and if it weren't for him, we wouldn't have an event like this. And if it weren't for his love and his attention that he gives 365 days a year, I don't think we would have the family that we have right now gathered here together today. So one thing that I want to talk about, at least briefly, is about unity. We're ending a rather difficult political cycle here in Georgia, or we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And there's a lot of division right now, and I think it's number one by design, and number two quite unnecessary. And here's what I mean by that. Raise your hand if you're a mother. Raise your hand if you're a father. Raise your hand if you're a brother or sister. What about a grandparent? There's a little more in common. We have a little more in common than what we'd like to think about sometimes. Despite what we're being told on the news or what we're being told on the television or the radio, the commonality that you see can be found in each and every one of us, and that's humanity. James helps manage and organize one plant, and so I really started thinking about just the name in general of his organization, One Plant, and it means something more to me today, 5+ years into advocacy work, than it did when I first got started. Because not only is there one plant, but we're one people, and we lose sight of that sometimes. Again, I think it's by design that there's this division that is being shoved down our throats almost daily on a 24-hour news cycle. That's not necessary. We all might look a little different, we all might dress a little different, we all might talk a little different, but at the end of the day, the commonality that we have is found here, and it's within this unity that I'm going to speak about. If I go home from work, I've had a rough day at work, traffic was horrible getting to and from the office, I get in, I don't feel good, I had a headache. I go to the refrigerator, I grab a beer, a glass of wine, I sit down and have that, sit in my chair, relax. Am I doing that recreationally, or am I doing that medicinally? Or does it really matter? Because at the end of the day, who am I hurting, and what am I doing by putting something inside my body, inside my own house, that's worth an uproar? Because it's not. And so the same thing has happened with the plant. The same thing has happened with cannabis. Because right now, we're being divided amongst those who wish medicinal and those who wish recreational. And my argument is this: there is no difference between a medicinal or recreational use of this plant. And so talking with James and talking with others behind the scene, I think we need to focus in on the commonality that we have here, what brought us here together today. And it's not black, it's not white, it's not R, it's not D, it's not independent, it's not mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, but it's a desire for us to end prohibition against a plant. Our country has literally waged war against a plant, and truth be told, they've lost. Because anytime we gather like this, anytime we collectively gather and sit down as one, we're winning. We're winning. My friend and founder of Peace Your Normal, Sharon Rayburn, likes to say, when we're talking, we're winning. And that's exactly what we're doing. And so this divide that we're hearing, at least the rhetoric that we're hearing, the political rhetoric about medicinal and about recreational, we have not lost sight of what the one plant truly is. And we need to remind our elected officials, any chance we get, even though we're coming off a rough election cycle, we need to remind our elected officials, one, that they're beholden to us. They answer to us. It's just that simple. We don't answer to them. And so collectively, we, one people, one plant, want access to the healing powers of cannabis. We don't want to be caged for it. We don't want to be ostracized for it. We just want access to it. Unfettered access. Whether you want it on the quote-unquote recreational end, if you want it on the medicinal end, we just want access to it. Unfortunately, we don't have ballot initiative here in Georgia. Otherwise, this issue would have been addressed years and years ago. Unfortunately, we don't. And so, as we look ahead to 2023, I just want to remind each and every one of us here today that we can be unified. We have a collective front, we have a collective voice, we have one plant, and we have one heart. And if we could just focus that energy and direct that energy on the end goal, not the infighting, but the end goal. If we can just see that, first and foremost, it's going to take this unified front to continue this fight. I've been involved for 5+ years. Some of us in here have been involved for quite longer than that. And each year we think we see there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but each year our elected officials find a way to further this divide. And my argument would be that tonight we just need to stand up, or today we need to stand up and say enough is enough. There's no division. There's one plant, there's one people, and there's truly one love. And that if we can stand on that and focus our efforts in that direction, perhaps it'll guide us towards what we ultimately want, and that's to end prohibition against cannabis, at least here in Georgia. If we do that, I think if we can pull our power together and unify and heal, then I think the future looks bright for us in our effort. I keep hearing about 2023 is maybe a rebuilding year, or 2023 not a whole lot's gonna change. We're not gonna accomplish a whole lot, but my argument would be in 2023, it's a fresh start. 2023 comes a new opportunity for us to do what is right. And we've continued that. We continue that fight. We've been doing it for quite some time now, and I don't anticipate anyone here is going to relent. At least I hope not. But in the interim, and I'm going to be quiet here in a minute, that was a message I wanted to bring this morning, and that was just about unity, unification. We all come from different walks of life. We all come from different backgrounds. We're all raised a little bit different. We all listen to different types of music. But at the end of the day, we're all brothers and sisters, husbands, fathers, grandmothers, grandfathers. And that's what we don't need to lose sight of. Regardless of what we are being told, regardless of the vision that's being shoved down our throat each and every day, 24/7, I think that we're a little more than that. We're a little better than that. And we are not what we're being told that we are. So just look around for 1 second. Just look around. We have doctors, we have lawyers, we have business entrepreneurs. And we run the gambit here. Chefs, mothers, grandmothers, cooks. I mean, Stacy, where did you drive from? Dublin? Dublin. I think she made. Who drove further away than Dublin to be here?
Skip did. Washington D.C.
Washington D.C. New Jersey. Where at?
Blue Ridge,
Blue Ridge? Okay. Dr. Umer, you flew in from
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. So if that doesn't speak volumes for what we're trying to accomplish here, I don't know what else does. And with that, I'm going to be quiet. Just thank you for your time, and just please remember that we are still one plant. We're all just one heart. Thank you so much.
So I'm going to kind of reiterate what Ryan said, because that's what started One Plant, was the fact that it's all cannabis. You know, we can talk about hemp, we can talk about marijuana, recreational, adult use, medical, whatever. It's all cannabis. No matter what. It's how we grow it, what we grow it for. That's what ultimately defines it. And One Plant just went along really well with One Plant United. You know, we're all one, it's one plant, we're all one people. If we work together, united, we can overcome. We can actually change things. And it's so great to see so many great organizations here coming together. You know, and there's a lot of good organizations, and you're going to learn a lot more about them here. So our next guest is, you know, Ryan said he's been in this about 5 years, but my next guest has probably been in this 30 plus years. And she's a real OG in the cannabis industry. She's an original ganja gangster. And she's also the founder and director of the Georgia Cannabis Industry Alliance, my good friend Teresa Yarborough.
Hello, James. Thank you for putting this together and for inviting all of these organizations to share in this event today. Thanks to all the veterans for being the original freedom fighters, correct? That's right. Well, I'm here to fight for them today and every day. I'm here to fight for freedom. I'm here to fight for the freedom for veterans to have the right to cannabis for medicine, for your PTSD and all the problems that your service has brought to you. I'm here to fight for our cannabis culture. As James said, I've been in this legalization business for over 40 years. And right now we're at a really critical time, because our legislators here in Georgia have decided to get in the bill mill industry. And I'm talking about ALEC. I can't remember what the, if anybody knows what ALEC stands for, I can't remember right now, but it's American Legislation Exchange Council. And it's a privately owned business that supports our legislators coming in to these private meetings and being handed bills by lobbyists. I'm talking about the MSOs, the corporate people in the cannabis business, and we're just shut completely out of this. We're just not involved in this process at all. And so our organization is going to take on ALEC this year. And we're going to try to see if we can't get our legislators back into the business of working for the people and not for corporates. And when I talk about our culture, I'm talking about, I've been a pot smoker since I was about 14 years old. I'm 70 years old today. Not today, but this year. And we kind of like getting together with our tribe. Is that right? Yes. Am I right there? We like to get together with our tribe and do what we like to do. I'm not an alcohol user. I'm not opposed to alcohol and those who do participate in alcohol. But my thing's weed. I like to smoke weed. They like to smoke weed too. But I'm fighting for for our freedom to be a culture. I'm not fighting for large corporate companies to come in and take over the business of cannabis. What we want to see with the Georgia Cannabis Industry Alliance, which is the state's first trade organization in cannabis, what I want to see is MSOs work with us. We don't care that they come in here. We don't care that they have the majority to have the biggest grow facilities and extractors and all that. We don't care. We really don't even care about that kind of stuff. What we care about is that our legislators give us something too. They need to be giving us home grow. Because there's a lot of us out here that are connoisseurs of weed. We have been smoking long enough that we know what we like, and all we want is a quality product, a quality price, and easy accessibility. That's what we want. And we also would like to see a cottage industry where if you can't afford a $10 million license, you can get a license to grow in a cottage industry with a license price that you can afford. But they're afraid that this is going to take away from them. Yeah. The corporates are afraid that by giving us home grow rights and caregivers rights and cottage industry rights, that's going to take some money out of their already rich pockets. But it's not. And I know you've heard this before. You can grow a tomato in your garden. You can grow okra. You can grow squash. But most people don't garden, right? And most people are not going to grow marijuana. But those of us who would like to should be able to. So that's what we're about. And we're about to, let me just show you a bunch of people here who are with us right now. Christopher Rayleigh. Christopher is on the Georgia Cannabis Retailers Alliance. And Ted Mitz. Ted is a board member of the Georgia CIA. Dr. Uma is a board member of the Georgia CIA. Do we have any other folks here tonight? David Rodabaugh. David is on the board of the Georgia Cannabis Retailers Alliance, along with Kurt Hollins Jr. at Airport Vapes. And I just want to give a shout out to Kurt too today, because he has stepped up to the plate and has provided us a great venue for us to have meetings and organizational things, as well as just parties. And I do mean parties, right, Dr. Emma?
Oh, I've been there.
So that's about all I've got to say. I just want to say that the idea that our legislators are catering to corporates and not to the people is not setting right with most of us. And we have told all the MSO people, they come to us and they say, we want what you got. Well, what are you talking about? We want your people. We want our employees, when they come to Georgia, to be able to mingle with you guys and party with you. Well, what are you going to give us? Well, what do y'all want? Well, we want home grow, we want caregivers' rights, and we want cottage industry. And they're just not willing to talk about that. So we're just going to have to get organized here. If other groups want to join us in some of our plans and activities, we would love to have any of you guys. And because it's going to take all of us, because we do have a big battle. And while I'm at it, I just want to mention another thing. I'm often asked why I focus on Georgia, and I'm laser focused on Georgia. And that's because we have different things going on down here. Like, for instance, we have hemp that is legalized in this state now. But we have hemp farmers who have already went broke in the few years that we've had this kind of legislation. And I see legislation coming in that's going to be trying to do away with Delta 8 and THCA and some of the other cannabinoids and acids and things that are present in marijuana in the flower. And down here, we have to create a different industry for our hemp people. We've got timber. We've got textile products. that we need to be getting contracts for our hemp farmers. We need to be reaching out to and finding and locating these contracts to get our farmers in business. I mean, in real business, not just putting something in the ground and then letting it rot in the barn the rest of the year because we just don't have the contracts to provide for that. So we want to see infrastructure brought in here, and we're going to try to build that infrastructure, and we hope you guys will join us in our efforts. We appreciate all of you, and we hope you have a good time. We hope you get high, and we hope that that you'll join us in our efforts. Thank you so much.
Miss Teresa Yarbrough, thank you so much. Get involved with the Georgia Cannabis Industry Alliance. They're a great organization. So my next guest is probably the person that came in from the farthest away. She flew in, I believe, Thursday so that she could be here for the event Friday, and she flew all the way down from Massachusetts. Like she said, she has spoken probably at events all across the country. You've probably even seen her on TV. You're in for a real treat. She is the founder at Uplifting Health and Wellness, Dr. Uma Donabalan.
Well, good morning. Is it still morning? Have we passed the noon hour?
Yeah.
Well, it is. Well, good afternoon. It's morning somewhere. James, I want to say thank you so much. And I want to thank each and every one of you, and also the people that aren't here with us today, because that's what it's all about. And I get a little emotional because this is real. And this is about what Ryan said, this differentiation between medical and recreational. And I want to go right there first, because as a doctor, I learned about different systems: the cardiac system, the pulmonary system, the reproductive system. But I had never, ever learned about a system that's a mere 600 million years old. Not something that we just learned about today, but a system that's been around for 600 million years. And nobody taught it to me. And the reason I got involved in this is because I was in the state of Washington working as a doctor. I had gone to school, many detours to get to being a doctor. Talk about persistence. I started med school 3 times and finally succeeded on the 4th time. So I believe the good Lord has some purposes and some detours that we have to get through, but each one of them taught me a lesson. I was working at the world's largest cleanup site for plutonium. Plutonium. And you talk about wars. Well, there was 2 bombs dropped in Japan. One was a plutonium bomb made in Washington at the Hanford site, and a uranium bomb made in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. So I went to work there in 2010 as a family doctor, as a doctor that had also been an occupational environmental medicine physician. I've been board certified in both of them, and also I specialized in heavy metals, lead being my favorite, and I also got into beryllium. I give you the background about this because in addition to this training, I was a medical review officer, an MRO. Well, that title gave me the rights to do drug testing. You guys ever peed in a cup? Or had your hair snapped? Or had to do a breathing test? Well, those are called drug testings of different kinds to make sure that we have a safe environment. I believe I took an oath, and Dr. Uma says, safety first, do no harm. And that's why this plant, I can talk about it so boldly. So while I was working there, my mom was diagnosed with an illness known as idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. So I was playing family doctor, Ahmed, doing surveillance exams And if you tested positive for this chemical known as THC, you have the potential of losing your job, your livelihood, and everything. The other part of me had a mom that was dying of a disease known as idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis with no cure. And I could still hear her saying, "They're using ganja." I knew what that word was. And I beelined it into the bedroom. And she was watching a TV program about how cannabis was being used in Israel for COPD, asthma, lung cancer, and PTSD. Because everybody in Israel had some type of post-traumatic stress. Did not compute. You mean to tell me you're gonna smoke weed and you're gonna feel better and it's gonna help you breathe? I was told to tell everybody, don't smoke. Don't use that weed. And all of a sudden, the curiosity, the cat in me, always being curious, started to learn. And I learned that we had this system that nobody taught me about, which was the endocannabinoid system. And that system is in all of us. Every mammal has this system. So that brings us together, not separates us. We never, ever, ever talk about any system working medically and recreationally. Or I'm say, well, your cardiac system is working between the hours of 8 and 5 medically, and it will be working recreationally later. Or your reproductive system, for that fact, will be working medically and maybe recreationally later tonight. We don't talk about any system that way. But we choose, as a society that we've created, to talk about the endocannabinoid system working medically or recreationally. Bullcrap. Let's stop the confusion. It's all medical, folks. All right, so let's get that straight first. If you choose to use it with a doctor's recommendation, we call it medical. If you choose to use it on your own, it's still medical, but we've classified it as, I like to call it as adult use. So let's do it that way. Let's just call it that way, because that way I think we can all speak about it on the same level. So what this really taught me was that I had been misled and I was part of the problem. I chose to be part of the solution. And Global Health and Hygiene Solutions was created in 2006 with a mission to promote wellness and prevent illness. I knew nothing about the endocannabinoid system. In 2014, I came to Massachusetts and we created Uplifting Health and Wellness with 3 words: educate, embrace, and empower. So in 2012, my mother passed away January 7th. I too understand what post-traumatic stress is. I like to call it post-traumatic strength. Let's think about it as a different way. Because you know something? Right now the world is suffering with post-traumatic stress. We've all gone through COVID. It's touched us in some way, shape, or form. I never got to use this plant for my mother. So I decided to be a badass. And I've created a few along the way, so I'm very proud to stand here. I didn't always feel that way. Because when I came back to Massachusetts, I thought my colleagues would embrace me and say, Uma's back and she's got this knowledge. I felt shameful. They laughed, they ridiculed me. The pot doctor, the weed doctor. Call me whatever you want now. I'm here and I'm proud of what I do. I haven't written an opioid in over 15 years. There's a role for these medicines, but we have a choice and we should have that alternative. Your zip code should not be the line that segregates you to get access to this medicine. Should not be. You should not have to worry about taking your medicine on a plane or with your family and travel across the nation throughout the world. People can take their Adderall, their Oxys, and even their booze around the world, and that's okay. I choose not to drink. I choose not to use tobacco. I choose to write recommendations for my patients. I call cannabis the exit drug. Yes, because it's the entrance to a better quality of life, and it's an exit from alcohol, nicotine, pharmaceuticals, and honestly, it's also should be a first-line option when it comes to palliative care and cancer treatments. I can't stress upon that. I beg people, please, if you don't want to give it to anything else, please start there. Our babies, our adults, and it's not just the people that are dying, but the people left behind, the family members, the caregivers, the parents that have to see somebody dying. Been there, done that, and we have an option. Why are we not using it? So 3 facts I want you guys to know today, okay? Fact number 1, this plant was prescribed by doctors. Prescribed. I can't prescribe it today. I can only recommend it state by state, depending on the guidelines. It was prescribed and it was in the United States Pharmacopoeia from 1850 to 1942. Fact number 1, and it was listed for opioid addiction, not the cause of, but the treatment for opioid addiction, the treatment for alcoholism, the treatment for insanity, gout, and the list goes on. Fact number 1, from 1850 to 1942. Be armed with some facts. Fact number 2, the United States of America has the patent. Patent number 6630507, and we just celebrated the anniversary of this patent. 6630507 patent clearly states cannabinoids are an antioxidant and neuroprotectant, folks. Nothing about neurotoxic. Nothing about neurotoxic. It talks about neuroprotectant and that it's been used and learned about for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, for prevention, maintenance, and treatment. And I see that in my practice. We've delayed people getting into nursing homes. We've improved their quality of life, not even for the patient, the caregivers, and the family members. That's important to me. That's why I went into medicine. I love what I do, and I'm proud of it. I can't say that about all my colleagues right now. Just like James started out by saying, 22 veterans a day we're losing to suicide. We're losing almost a doctor a day to suicide right now because they're not having the quality of life. That's sad. And cannabis is an exit drug for me because it gave me the opportunity to be an independent doctor. When I chose to do what I did, I left the hospitals, I left the universities, I left the insurance companies. I left a very lucrative career, but I'm damn proud of what I do today. This journey continues, and I started with 5 pillars. I want to see legalization. And when I started to talk about legalization, I realized there's a difference between legalization and decriminalization. And we need to understand that that's a worldwide issue. Decriminalization, we need to make sure, at least if we can get that. The second thing is we must see laboratory standards so we can understand that when we look at a label, what we're talking about, and that the product has been tested, because this plant has killed nobody. And that's the third fact I want you to know. Nobody in the whole world has ever died from an overdose. But if we mess with this plant, with pesticides and we grow it improperly, we can create a poison out of it. And that's so important to me. Don't mess with my plant. And this is important about laboratory testing. We need to see products created, all kinds of products, topical solvents that can be used for so many treatments, so many products for this planet. We need to see cultivation. Everybody should be able to grow it. And we need education. Education. After my mother died, my mission began that we must change the stigma regarding cannabis and for everybody in the world to know that we have an endocannabinoid system, and I do it through education. And that's what we're doing here. We're educating. So the 5 pillars are legalization or decriminalization, laboratory standards, products, cultivation, and education. And in the same note, I speak all over the world now, and I talk about this plant as cannabis as the global solution. And it's a trademark lecture. So I look at this plant for 5 P's. It's for people. All people must have access. It's not for everybody, but it should be a first-line option and not the last resort. Does everybody get that? Yes. So it's for people. The next thing, it's for pets. If our produce, the chickens, the cows, the pigs, the animals that we consume and put in our bud days were fed hemp and cannabinoids, they would be healthy. Because the root cause is inflammation. Every daggone thing, a cancer, disease, illness has to do with inflammation. And as doctors, we have fancy terms. It's an itis, dermatitis, arthritis, bursitis, carditis is some frickin' itis. Right? And we have a diagnosis code for it, and we have a treatment plan with no exit plan. Doctors don't have an exit plan when they start you on that pharmaceutical. So, the plant is for people. Pets are produce. It's for this planet. If we created every single-use plastic bottle, shame on me for carrying this today. But honestly, if we can have every plastic converted to have some hemp in it, we could save this planet. And plant the plant for the planet. If we could plant it, it's for phytoremediation. It's for peace. The war on drugs. People in jail. Damn it. There's a woman in Russia for a vape pen today. Unacceptable. Why? She could have been carrying her Adderall or something else and that would have been fine. But for a vape pen. So peace on earth. And ultimately, I call it profit, but it's really prosperity. For this plant to survive, that profit is not just your jobs, but it's your health and wellness. Your health and wellness means, to me, one healthy person can help 4 other people. One sick person needs 4 other people. Where do we want to be? We got an aging population. I'm 60 years young. I'm a mother. I'm a caregiver. I take care of a dad who's 89. And I'm also a doctor. But I love what I do, and I want to thank each of you. Thank you to our veterans, their families, for your hard work. I will support you guys and be here to help in any way I can. I take the time because I believe we're making a difference. I didn't give it to my mother, but daggone it, we're helping so many people, and I thank each of you. Each of you. So remember the philosophy, reach 1, teach 10. Whatever information, share it, because there's so much out there. Google it, PubMed, the information is there. So God bless and thank you all.
Dr. Uma. I told you guys she's full of knowledge, right? She's pretty awesome. And I can touch on a lot of things that she said, but the one thing I am going to say is cannabis is the exit drug. I am proud to say that I haven't touched a pharmaceutical drug, Tylenol, cough medicine, allergy medicine, over the counter, or prescription, doesn't matter, in over 8 years. I use all natural substances, and I'm not cured of everything by any means. I still have issues, and it's really hard for me to just be in front of people. I have a lot of social anxiety, but you know, cannabis has helped me, along with a lot of other natural alternatives. And that's another reason why we're here today, is to talk about all these other natural alternatives. And unfortunately, one of our speakers wasn't able to make it. He had an event in Colorado, but he did purchase a ticket. He had a room, and he was going to be here on Friday, but he had to cancel. But he was going to talk to us a little bit about the healing powers of mushrooms. And I kind of hate that he's not here, but luckily for you, we have someone else who's a Georgia native that's going to actually come up and talk to us a little bit about the healing powers of mushrooms. And this is our next guest. He's a Georgia native who has intimate knowledge of medicinal, edible, and sacred mushrooms, and he works with community to develop relationships with plants and mushrooms that grow right here in Atlanta. Today he's here to speak about the healing potential of mushrooms. My friend Josh Wayne.
Hi, Josh.
Hi everyone, really good to see some familiar faces, and you might have been like, wait, I've heard this Josh guy at UMA, we've had some great tea, and maybe 5 or 10 years ago I'd be talking about marijuana legalization and how I was just down at the Capitol. And then I realized something about, I guess, this prayer we had today about our Constitution and about the government. And you know, one of the things I've learned from Jesus, I was not raised Christian, but he knew the laws, and he knew how to teach people the laws. And so I've learned something about Georgia's Constitution that has changed my life, essentially. And that is that we have the right to worship God however we see fit, as long as we're not harming another person. And since 1993, where the Religious Freedom and Restoration Act was passed on a federal level, consecutively, every time it makes it to the Supreme Court, they say, yes, you are allowed to use peyote in 1994. Yes, you are allowed to use ayahuasca in 2000. Yes, you can use this because it is your sincere religious belief and you're not hurting anyone. And so I was in Athens, Clark County. I went to City Hall with 20 people to decriminalize marijuana. It took 7 years and that was just me. There were people before me who had come to City Hall and asked to decriminalize. So it definitely takes a lot of time to push this. But at the same time, I want you all to know that after 2020, basically, there was this court case in New Hampshire where somebody possessed 3.5 grams of mushrooms. And he basically said, I'm a member of the Native American Church, and this is my God-given right to worship God how I see fit. And they said, no, you can't do that. And he took it to the Supreme Court. Over 3 years it took to get to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court of New Hampshire mentioned the Constitution of New York, which is word for word our Constitution, and essentially said, if he's not hurting somebody, you have to try this on a case-by-case basis and tell us that he's harming the public, essentially. And so I'm here today also as a church leader. We've started what we call a synagogue. And it's also called Whole, which is kind of my journey through cannabis activism. I had really bad stomach pains and irritable bowel syndrome, and I thought that cannabis healed me. I mean, it was how I could get from Atlanta to Athens without having to stop for a bathroom in the middle. With IBS, I'd have to stop. With cannabis, I could keep going. And cannabis is an amazing plant that has amazing healing properties. I then took a class at the University of Georgia called Herbs, Spices, and Medicinal Plants. And I learned that the Dutch had a 200-year monopoly on cloves and nutmeg and mace. And do you all know that cloves have more cancer-killing properties than any herb or spice that's ever been tested, more antioxidants than anything. And these people had a 200-year monopoly on that. So this drug war's been going for, well, it was 70 when I started, maybe 80 now, but yeah, there's been wars fought over herbs and spices, and so there's so many herbs and spices that are growing right here in Georgia, and what I've been helping people realize is that, I mean, this Japanese hops is a non-native plant that's in the cannabis family, that's all over these parks now. No idea, you know, how to use that. It's not something I'm connected with, but there's just such a diversity of plants that are here to help us. So yes, cannabis is important. It's amazing. It's part of my religion. I need it to connect with God. cannabis has a different kind of deity experience for me. Mushrooms are also part of my religion. I also need them to connect with the whole. Cactuses, which I don't know if you all know, but there's not a single cactus in the old world, except for maybe Australia. All of the cacti come from the Americas. So all of our religions that, connected with God from the old world, none of them had the cactus to connect and really feel that spiritual connection. And so I want to thank all the veterans, because you were here to support our freedom of religion. My family came over from Europe, where we probably would have been killed for having a different spirituality. And I know my spirituality of this holistic, principle might be new to some of you, but one of the amazing things about America and the amazing things about the U.S. is that we allow religions to flourish, and we allow people to connect with God how they see fit, as long as they're not hurting people. So really, as a marijuana activist, I lived a life of pretty deep paranoia for a while, and then I realized that I am allowed to worship God in this way, and you are allowed to worship God in this way. And if y'all are interested, I can, share with you how you can protect yourself right now. Does that sound like something interesting? Yes. Yeah, okay. So basically, you need to have some sort of proof that this is your religion, that you do believe that cannabis connects you with God, that mushrooms, if mushrooms are your thing. And the thing is, what's to stop someone from saying, yeah, that mushroom over there, that turkey tail that I brought, that's illegal now. You can't have that turkey tail, even though it cures cancer in some cases. You can't have turkey tail because it might do something bad for somebody. Well, it's still part of my religion. Turkey tail is still part of my religion. So you can either join a church, and if you join a church, like this person in New Hampshire, all you have to say is, I'm a member of this church. This is my belief. I have community here. This is what I believe. There are cannabis churches that exist. One of the founders that I worked with, I know, I'm not sure, I haven't been part of that church, but I know some of the marijuana activists that I started with have started churches. And the thing is that this is extremely authentic. I mean, I'm not sure who has actually taken mushrooms or cannabis. Anyone here taken psychedelic mushrooms? You close your eyes and you see some things that are a little spiritual. Yeah. And I mean, mushrooms taught me to meditate and to get into Buddhism and Taoism and to learn about everything. And they have given me something. And spiritual, that word actually comes from breath, to respire. So, learning how to take a deep breath, which cannabis sometimes gives us that deep breath that relaxes us when you breathe in. That's the deep breath that relaxes us. That's the spirit coming inside of us. And so, if you believe that, no one can take that away from you. It's been, now, before 1993, it was a little hazier. People did have religions and they were not protected for drug policies. What I'm saying is, essentially, since the government has allowed the Native American churches to use peyote. Since 1993, almost every time somebody has been sincere in their use of these plants to help them connect with their religion, it has been protected. And so I want you all to know that, we can be free right now to practice what you believe. I mean, no one's going to get hurt. I mean, if you take a ton of cannabis and then crash into somebody, I'm sure they could have a problem with that. The one thing I will say is that this is to protect yourself. This is, if you are going to supply other people, then you might want to be somebody who's an ordained minister, and you might want to make sure that it's for a religious purpose and not just giving it to people and selling it. So that's not my plan. I just help people connect with the plants and mushrooms. Like I'm saying, a lot of shamans in these cultures, which I don't call myself a shaman, however, we do something similar. We know about the plants. I picked up persimmons off the ground today that I brought for people if they want to try them. I've, foraged these mushrooms that have medicinal properties that you could pay $60 for in the store. And I could take those mushrooms on the table right there. That's not that much. I could probably take that and make that into thousands of dollars of tinctures. But I want people to understand that you can find these in your woods, and especially in Georgia. So for the veterans, I want to say I offer foraging hikes in Atlanta and the surrounding areas, and I'm happy to give y'all either your first hike free 50%. I want veterans. I mean, you know, people that have spent time outside, I know a lot of you have, and you have a lot of survival skills that I could use as well. I mean, I know the mushrooms, but the thing is, you start to understand what nature is teaching us, and I know that Georgia would be probably a pretty good climate for cannabis, but I mean, there's plants that have all kinds of compounds growing all over the state that are just amazing and medicinal, and I'm sure they'd make them illegal if people really cared enough. But they are all part of my spirituality. So if y'all want to join my hikes, Atlanta Mushrooming is a group. Basically, we're using technology to be able to crowdsource knowledge. So if you see a mushroom, you can take a photo of it and someone will tell you about it. I've also written some articles on how to do this safely, so don't just let some one person, you know, like make sure there's a few people, make sure it's people that are, well, this is an interesting word. James mentioned that I was a mushroom expert. However, I don't call myself an expert. Anyone who forages mushrooms seriously will probably not call themselves an expert. I just really like mushrooms, and I've been doing this for 11 years now and haven't killed myself, but I've gotten close. And that's where friends come in, and that's where community comes in. So, you know, basically all I'm trying to say is that there's medicine. Like, I'm looking at, you know, this beautiful wild lettuce that has opiates in it just growing right there. I mean, I've seen plantain that if you cut yourself, you can chew it up and put it on a cut. Chickweed that can be your greens. I mean, it's just like everywhere. And there's a park really close to here where psychedelic mushrooms grow. Just wild. Yeah, in many parks right here. And it's just like, this is all happening everywhere. You don't have to do anything. In fact, everything that we're doing to cut down the trees and chop them up, that's all creating all of these psilocybin mushrooms. And so, cannabis might not grow wild, but psilocybe mushrooms definitely grow in Georgia. And nobody can, you know, change that reality, essentially. They'd have to stop cutting down the trees, they'd have to stop building. They're not going to do that. So, as a result, all I'm saying is that you have the right, thanks to the veterans, thanks to the people that are here fighting for our rights, because not every country allows you to practice your religion. Like, if you're in Russia and you're like, this is my religion, they'd say, that's great, but you're going to jail. You know, and the US is different in that way because we started as a place where people had different beliefs. They were fleeing persecution. And in order to not be just killed for whatever belief, we stood up and we said, I need to have the right to think differently, to have a different religion and to be able to practice it as long as I'm not harming somebody else. And so that's the main message I want to get across, is that if you're not part of a church, you can join mine called Whole Incorporated. We keep basically donation-based at this point, just to help people connect to the whole, connect to, you know, what flows. Taoism just says, do the easiest thing, just let it flow. You know, the plants, the mushrooms, they're here for us. Or you can write down your statement of beliefs, something that you believe very deeply, and I believe this, and this is connected to my religion and the way that I see God, Gaia, the Tao. And if you have that written down and time-stamped now, and before it becomes an issue, before you're arrested, if somebody asks you, what proof do you have that this is religious, you say, well, here's what I've written down, here's what I do. They can't ask how orthodox you are, so they can't ask you, well, like, how often do you pray? They're not allowed to ask you these things. And so it's, as I'm finishing up, when I started with marijuana activism, I helped people learn their rights. There was a big Know Your Rights card from the ACLU we'd give to people. And this kind of talk that I'm giving to a lot of activists in the field is another sense of Know Your Rights 2020 edition. Because when I started marijuana activism, I don't think any of this was as clear. And if y'all are interested in the full legal explanation for why I feel that we are protected in Georgia, because I know that this is a hot topic, the Religious Freedom and Restoration Act might not apply to the state of Georgia. However, this New Hampshire case I'm mentioning to you all says that the state constitution can be more protective than the federal constitution. And our state constitution says no one can stop you from your conscience connecting with God. And is marijuana a mind-altering substance? Does marijuana alter your conscience? Marijuana alters your consciousness. And if my consciousness can't connect with God without cannabis in my system, then no one can take that away according to the Georgia Constitution. The federal Constitution is less lenient, but Georgia says no one should be able to take away your right to alter your consciousness to connect with God. And that's what I'm going with. I think if we all go with that, a court case has not come up to affirm that, but when or if it does, I hope we can all come together. We can support the people that take this to the Supreme Court of Georgia, and in my mind, we're going to have to go to the courts to get it. It's not going to happen on the legislature, so I don't plan to end up in court, but I hope that, if y'all really, I know that you all have spiritual connections with these plants, and, go with that because that is your protection. And honestly, we should be using cannabis more intentionally. I worked with people here that, encourage you to pray with the cannabis and to understand how it influences you. Mushrooms, you definitely need to have some sort of breath work and some connection, so don't shy away from that spiritual aspect. Embrace it, and that will keep you safe in Georgia, in my mind. So thank you all, and I'd love to connect. Thank you. Yeah, so and I'm on Facebook, connect with me, and if you see a mushroom, send me a photo. Put it on Atlanta Mushrooming, and let's just help each other, get some food.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you so much. And I've gotten so interested in mushrooms over the last year or so, and then I started learning a little bit more about them, and it's amazing. There's so many medicinal benefits as it relates to mushrooms, and we're not just talking about the magic mushrooms, the psychedelic mushrooms. We're talking about the thousands of other species of mushrooms there are. One thing, I don't know if you guys realize this, but the reason why they're so good for us is because animals or humans are more closely related to fungi than anything else. It's crazy. Like literally, we're more closely related to fungi than the other 4 kingdoms, or 3 kingdoms. If you go ahead.
I realized I didn't talk much about the medicinal qualities. Mushroom, every different mushroom we eat, every different plant that we eat fills our gut bacteria and helps it thrive. And so mushrooms do something where they actually increase the level of immunoglobulin A, which is vital to our stomach lining. So our stomachs are 1 cell thick. And if that breaks, that is very painful. Very painful. Leaky gut is what that's sometimes called. I had IBS, chronic stomach pain, every single day of high school. Mushrooms, all 8 that they tested, the tests were done by the button mushroom business, so, that was the one that turned out best, actually. So white button mushrooms also work for this. They all boosted your immunoglobulin A, which is very important in maintaining your stomach's gut lining. So if it's, and I do want to say something about edible versus medicinal. Can you hold that mushroom up there? Yeah, any of those mushrooms. Yeah, these mushrooms are not edible because it would not be fun to chew through that. But they can be extracted through tea. Some people do alcohol, some people do vinegars, some people do water. And you can extract medicinal compounds. Whereas if I have a 20-pound lion's mane, which, I don't know, if Lee comes, say hi to him, but a friend found 20 to 30 pounds of lion's mane. That's medicinal and edible. And I think they all have medicinal compounds, like we're saying with cannabis. You can't use it and not benefit medicinally. However, there are definitely, like nutmeg. If you have 2 tablespoons of nutmeg, you could kill yourself. So just sprinkle a little bit on there. But some plants will tell you to stop using them. And just because if you forage, if something's been used medicinally, learn how they used it. Mushrooms are the easier one to forage with because generally if you've used it, you can. I mean, there's some mushrooms you need to process, but with plants, just because someone used it doesn't mean they just put it in their mouths. They could have processed it in many different ways. So learn the language of the mushrooms. They're all super medicinal. My theory is if it's a whole plant or a whole mushroom, start slow, be persistent. Don't eat 50 pounds of it the first time you try it. But start with a little bit and keep doing it. Your gut flora will thank you. You won't have to go to the doctor. Your stomach will function normally. So Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Josh. So yeah, it's not just cannabis, it's mushrooms and a lot of other things. We're going to take a quick break, but during this break, we're going to actually go ahead and do a little drawing for the raffle. You guys make sure if you want to get in the raffle, Teresa has tickets, so make sure you get in on that. So we're going to do a drawing right now, and then turn the mic over to Teresa.
Okay, we're going to draw for the $5 tickets right now. So get your tickets out. Three, 8, 6, 0, 9, 8, 4. Anybody? 3, 8, 6, 0, 9, 8, 4.
Oh my goodness, I win.
All right. And you get to pick the first of, get Melissa to go over there with you and show you what you can choose from. And all the speakers, if we could get you guys together during this break and get a group photo. All the speakers, if you don't mind, come up to the front so we can get a group photo.
Good afternoon. I am all the speakers. Come on, guys. Come up here. Let's get a group photo. Come on. All the speakers. Who's speaking? Who spoke? Who's going to speak?
Melissa. James Meisner, we need you up here.
What are we doing? Do I need my ticket?
All the speakers, please come to the front.
Dr. Ruma.
Who's taking the picture?
I would definitely.
Three, two, one. One more. Three, two, one. Everybody else got pictures? We all good? One more. Yeah. All right. Yeah, don't move. We have to dismiss you. Post those on the event page, please. I will. Yeah, any pictures that I get, I'll try to get from everybody, and we'll make sure they get posted to the event link on Facebook so you can find them, or you can reach out to me.
Yes, post those on the event link on the Facebook event page.
Hey, tag Golden Drop too, guys. Let's get them some promotion up in
I
here.
can't tag you.
Oh, the company, not the business. Let's just work for it. Just work for it.
On Facebook, it's Veterans Day, or look up on One Plant.
Okay,
It'll be on One
Susan,
Plant.
did we finish your transaction? Yes, I took.
All right, so make sure you get in on that raffle. We're gonna do the rest of the raffle a little bit. We got a skateboard that's really cool. It's a Raw skateboard. If you guys know what Raw is, it's the name brand for rolling papers. And then there's lots of other gift bags over there. So get in on the raffle. I think they're about to start serving the food here in just a few minutes. I ask that everybody please kind of just mingle your way in and back to your seats and be respectful of the people that are going to be speaking. But they should be serving here shortly. Our next speaker, if we're about ready to get back to this, is a really good friend of mine. He actually has been at this event every year since we've done it, and he's been a huge help. He always provides the sound. He always videos it. You know, he does this for every event in Georgia, I think. I don't know how he can do so much. I mean, a few years ago he was running for governor. This year he's running for Secretary of State. He served in the United States Navy, and he wanted to make sure that I said it was an Air Force brat but a Navy veteran. He was the Libertarian candidate for Secretary of State this year. He was the gubernatorial candidate for the Libertarian gubernatorial candidate a few years ago, Mr. Ted Metz.
I'm really glad James does this for us veterans. I was a veteran, yes, it's true. I went in the Navy in 1979, and all of our equipment was post-Vietnam era junk, basically. And I got out in '85, which was before the Middle East crisis stuff. So I served right in between wars. And there was wars all my life up until that point in time, and wars continuing long after that time. And what for? For oil, for energy, for world domination, for currency manipulation, for a bunch of people who got elected and went to Washington or any other capital anywhere in the world to like create a cabal to enrich themselves on our labor, suppressing us, depressing us, starving us, limiting our thoughts, limiting our freedom, suppressing us, oppressing us, and expecting us to take more. Look around you at what's happened in the last 18 to 24 months. We went from doing pretty good to something where if we don't stop it right now, at all levels of government, we are going to be permanently screwed. Our offspring are going to be permanently screwed. Our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren will take 7 generations to recuperate to the point that we were before the disaster that's occurring right now. It's going to get a lot worse. I hope everyone has canned food stored, plenty of ammo, and what do they call those, high-speed lead delivery systems. But I'm going to get off of that right now. We did just go through an election cycle. A lot of us are not very confident in the election equipment that we're using in Georgia, and that's what I'm going to speak to the heart of today. The government exists by the power of the people authorizing them to do certain things. And unfortunately, we no longer hold our government officials accountable. They get away with murder, they get away with incest and rape and pedophilia and collusion and bribery and all kinds of corruption. The news media doesn't report about it, and then when you try to hold them accountable for it, they claim sovereign immunity, or that you don't have standing to take us to court, or something like that. Well, we are fighting through this. Some of you may remember in 2018, one of my strongest campaign planks for the governorship of Georgia was ending sovereign immunity. It took them a while, but they finally made it a constitutional amendment so it couldn't face a gubernatorial veto. And that sovereign immunity constitutional amendment to end sovereign immunity happened in the 2020 election. And of course it was completely overlooked because there was bigger fish to fry about the 2020 stuff. So, with that, 2 weeks ago, the Supreme Court of Georgia offered their opinion and their decision on a case called Sons of Confederate Veterans versus Henry County, and another case related to it, Sons of Confederate Veterans versus Newton County. And in that decision, the judges clarified for us what we already knew, is that under our Constitution, we the people, the voters, the taxpayers, the community, and other stakeholders have always had the legal right to walk into court and sue somebody that wasn't doing what their oath said they should do. If they don't comply with the law, if they don't comply with their oath of office, malfeasance, misfeasance, etc., right on down to maladministration. And we see a lot of misadministration. They're purposely doing it wrong to benefit others. And this is going to bring me to the fact that we only have our vote to tell government what goes on. And a lot of people believe that. And they believe that when they cast their vote is actually going for the candidate that they selected. Well, I'm here to tell you, since HB 316 was passed, authorizing an electronic machinery system to connect to the internet, to shuffle around a bunch of votes, turning into a manipulated, fractionalized data point. Your vote is not a vote. When do you cast your vote? Do you cast your vote when you mark it on the ballot marking device? Or do you cast your vote after it goes through a bunch of people's computer systems and finally ends up in a hackable database? When is your vote cast? It used to be we did it on paper ballots. We marked it, A bunch of people went in and sat at a table and they all agreed what you voted for. They tallied the votes on a tally sheet and they said, okay, here are the results from the election from our precinct, and they'd hand that to the county would hand it to the state. It doesn't work like that anymore. And because of this, there are a number of us that were mad enough to do something about it just this past election. We launched a plan to use a special law in the Georgia Election Code, 212412, makes it mandatory for a judge to sit in court in all 49 Superior Court districts around the state. About 8 of us took advantage of that and had a complaint ready. We went into the voting poll location, took a picture of our ballot, went down to court, and filed under 212412, which mandates the judge must hear all election challenges on election day. And what we were doing was challenging the validity of the election based on the ballot not being conformative to the Georgia Code, which says the ballot marking devices shall print out the elector's choices in human readable form. And it goes on and says the vote tabulators shall tabulate the votes based on the human readable text. Our system doesn't do that. Our system converts our votes into a QR code, which is fed into a scanner, and the votes are accumulated from the QR code. That's not what the law says. That makes it an illegal election because the ballot form did not conform to law. And we have case history here in Georgia. Kemp versus Mitchell County basically said that the ballot form was not correct, therefore we have to redo the election on the proper ballots. So on this basis, we went to court and we challenged the ballot being conformative to Georgia law. And I was the first one to do that on Tuesday on election day. From that experience, we learned a lot about how to hone it in to actually get the judge within the scope of his authority under 212412 to actually make a ruling in our favor. We did that on Thursday. I guess I can name names, it's public record now. Gregory Howard actually went to Gwinnett County and sat before Justice Warren Davis. I guess it's Judge Warren Davis, sorry if I'm elevating his position. Judge Davis basically was there and he was very lenient because it was pro se. Greg did a great job with his delivery, and again, from the other lessons we learned from the other courtrooms about how to hone it in to make it stick, he did an excellent job on just basically saying the law says the ballots are supposed to be human readable, the tabulators are supposed to read the human readable. That's not how this works. This is not the ballot, and the prayer for relief was to do a hand count of the election, a hand count of the paper ballots. So right now we're waiting until Monday for the judge to actually issue his order, but we are fully expecting an order to hand count the paper ballot output from the ballot marking devices. That is under his scope of authority, and hopefully he'll do the right thing because it is lawful. His action to correct unlawful behavior is correct. Getting back to Sons of Confederate Veterans versus Henry County, now that we can sue and have standing in court for suing an elected official for breaking the law, essentially, there's going to be a lot more lawsuits out there. We, the people, need to take charge and hold our government accountable. And that's the problem that we're at right now, is we have not been holding our government officials accountable. We can sue them in court, we have standing. On election day, we can challenge an election, but only on election day because that's a special day. Other than that, we can continue to call our legislators, and we have to do that. You've heard that Speaker Ralston is retiring, and there's a huge fight about who's going to be the next Speaker of the House, and that's a very important thing. If you're not tuned into this, it's because the news media isn't focused on things that really affect our daily lives. We have to educate ourselves. We have to really know what's going on behind the scenes, because there's a lot that's going on behind the scenes. The government has seized authorities not granted by their constitution, both state and federal. And we can put a stop to it by saying, this is not constitutional, take them to court and say you have to stop. We have to organize and get together. You know, we are one plant, one people, you know, one love, but we sure are susceptible to being divided by, you know, into team red or team blue. And they do that on purpose. And they also instill fear in us, because fear is the greatest controller of human emotion. Fear drives out love. The vibrational frequency of fear drives out the frequency of love. So we have to realize that we are being propagandized. I'm going to say even worse. We are being programmed. We are being brainwashed into thinking a bunch of things that are not necessarily true. Because that's the narrative. You always hear about the narrative. It's the narrative. That doesn't fit the narrative. Well, what is the narrative? The narrative is we are subordinate to government. We are subordinate to local government. We are subordinate to the IRS. None of that is true, but they've brainwashed us into thinking that. We have to have a new great awakening. I know that, you know, the properties of both psilocybin and THC can help a little bit with opening your brain to channel the truth, the energy of truth through our souls. We really need that. We need to combine as one people, learn how to use the laws which are, you know, basically come from us under our authority. We have to use the laws in a way that we can hold our elected officials accountable, and now we have the pathway to do that with the most recent Georgia Supreme Court decision, along with the constitutional amendment in Georgia to end sovereign immunity. And the other thing we need to start looking to is parts of the Constitution that affect every one of us, and that is Article 4. Daniel, are you going to speak later or not? You're going to talk about Article 4? I'll leave that to Daniel. So mark my word, people, we are going to reclaim our country, our land, our community, and take government and put them back in the box that they should be in. They should be out patching the hole in the road. They shouldn't be in our lives, in our bedrooms, up our behinds, telling us what we can do and making us pay for it. We need to starve those sons of guns. So with that, if you served and you took the oath, remember our oath is to, you know, protect us from all enemies, foreign and domestic. We have domestic enemies. They are here. It is no doubt about it. If you understood the depth and scope of the Chinese influence in America and in Georgia politics, you would be aghast. We've got to get these guys out of office. We have to separate them from the money train that you have seen routed through Ukraine that the media doesn't tell you about. So with that, I think I'll end. But we have launched a project on libertyjam.org. libertyjam.org. It's kind of like a traffic jam, but with more freedom. So we'll be posting projects about how to, what code sections to use, you know, the guides to county governments, guide to how our Senate and how our House of Representatives here in Georgia are supposed to work. One of the things about HB 316, which authorized the purchase of the Dominion voting system, any bill over $100,000 is supposed to come equipped with what they call a fiscal note. HB 316 was passed without a fiscal note, and a lot of us tried to fight that. I included Garland Favorito of Voter GA and Constitution Party and a lot of other concerned citizens tried to get them to say to the governor, you can't sign this bill because it doesn't have a fiscal note. It's not properly executed as a bill. But no. So instead we have a $100 million voting system that we have no confidence in. Why do we need a $100 million voting machine when we can just bubble in paper with a number 2 pencil? It's like spending $1,000 on a designer can opener when all the cans come with a pop top. We don't need it. Let's get rid of it. Let's fight. And I say fight, and that'll get me banned from YouTube, right? We need to learn how to approach our legislators online, email, telephone calls, and we need to voice our opinion. We're not being represented, and they're steering us away from the American dream. So please, people, let's unite. LibertyJam.org. I'm going to toss it back to James. I think I made up for the time walks there.
Thank you, Ted. Mr. Ted Metz. So I didn't really block out any time for the catering because I didn't really know if we were going to do it. But I am going to give us about 10 to 15 minutes so people can get a plate, get back to your seat before we let the next speaker get up, just to be courteous to the next person. So if you guys want to make your way up and get a plate and make your way back to the seat. In the meantime, see Teresa and get some raffle tickets.
Right over here.
Raffle tickets right there. So, there you go. Eat, enjoy, and tip. In the meantime, Aviva and the Flying Pig ones will be gracing us with a little music in the background.
Oh, yeah? All right.
It takes them really short.
You had to carry my plate.
Oh, he didn't realize I was wearing heels. Stress is the #1 killer. So obviously de-stressing is medicine. Anything you do to de-stress, right? Music helps me de-stress.
Damn.
De-stress.
Yo. Yeah.
Natural vibrations. Natural. Natural vibrations. Natural. Vibration. A super sweet sensation. A simple conversation. A mental stimulation.
I'm doing some pan shots. Okay. I'm good, guy.
Natural. Feel your natural vibrations. Revive vibration with your frequency purification. Renew vibration with this spiritual Her name is Ellie Belly. Yeah, she exploded at the pot shop, but she recently got fixed. Yeah, it was a hot day, and I tuned it a little bit too hard. I was like, wait, I can't get it into it. But there was a guy that was nice enough to go home and let me use his ukulele. In the meanwhile, I just played the drum and chanted, and it was just meant to be. I did qigong, I did vibrational things, you know? I have my horn with me now, I didn't then. Natural vibration. You can sing along, it's a real easy chorus, and it gets it vibrating in you. Natural, natural. Look at that delicious food. Natural vibrations. I'm telling you, that food has some natural, loving vibrations. Natural, natural. That chef right there was slaving away in the kitchen. I kept going back there like, thank you, thank you. Plant your vibrations with your natural vibrations. With your natural vibrations, with your natural voice, you're naturally beautiful, you're naturally with your natural vibes, natural. Mama, you want to sing with me? Natural vibration. Yeah. Natural. Natural vibration. Alright, this is always requested, so I'm gonna sing it for y'all. Somewhere Someday I'll wish upon a star. I will wake up where those clouds are far behind me. Oh, where troubles melt like lemon drops high above those chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Oh, song with over the rainbow, hanging slide. Birds they fly over the rainbow wide. Oh, what can't I? See trees of green and red, roses too high,
Keto friendly.
buds and bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Blue clouds of white, oh, that brightness of the day. Oh, and I love the dark, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? Well, they're really saying, everyone, swallow first. I love you. Babies cry. I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I will ever know. And I think to myself, don't cry. Ooh, someday I wish upon a star. I will wake up where those clouds are very, very far behind. You and you and you and you and him and her and me. Oh, when troubles melt like lemon drops. Oh, high above those chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Also every Saturday right here at Golden Drops, 3 to 5. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and those dreams that we dare to dream really do come true. They come true. Yeah, they've already come true.
All right, how's that food, everybody? Is it good? Man, it looks amazing. I'm going to have to get some here in a little bit. Again, make sure that you tip. If there's not a jar out here, go inside and tip these folks. And also make sure you buy some raffle tickets. Teresa's got raffle tickets up there. Our next speaker, you've been listening to her for a few minutes now. She's got a beautiful voice. She is also the founder of the Georgia Hemp Economic Revival Organization. She has been singing cannabis songs for a very long time. You may have heard of Cannabis Car. Hopefully she'll play that for us shortly. Miss Aviva of the Aviva and the Flying Penguins.
Thank you so much, James. Yeah, stress is very much a killer. And that's why someone said it earlier. Anything that de-stresses you is obviously medicine, right? And I think where they have won is that if we feel stressed out about doing something that de-stresses us, that really twists up our psychology, you know? So I think having us all here together really helps us to honor the truth that we deserve to de-stress, however it is that we do that. Singing is really de-stressful for me, and it was definitely a battle for me to choose to do it as a career because everyone said not to. And so things like that, you know, you learn how to find your relaxation and realize that matters more than what other people think of me. So I hope you all can take that with you. Last night I hung out with my goddaughter. Super bright, sweet, glittery, sparkly 11-year-old. And I left early. And she said, Anna Viva, she calls me Anna Viva, why are you leaving early? Because I usually hang out as late as she wants. I said, well, I have to get ready for this veteran rally tomorrow, and I have to wake up early, and that's hard for me if I don't sleep. And she said, oh. I said, yeah, it's Veterans Day today, but we postponed it because of the rain. And she said, my friend called me earlier and said some people had off from school because it was Veterinarians Day. And we thought it was so cool that people were celebrating pets. She goes, but Anna Viva, this makes a lot more sense. Thank you for telling me that. And so it just goes to show how much education is needed. You know, like, obviously it's important. I'm not sure at what age to start teaching, but I don't remember learning about Veterans Day in school. I don't know if you all did, but I really don't remember learning that our veterans needed help. And so hopefully we can start doing that as a community more. And it just goes to show you how amazing throwing an event like this is as far as education, because now she's going to tell her friend who told her that, and her friend's going to tell all her friends, and that whole school is going to know about Veterans Day because of James. So give him a big hand, because, you know, I wouldn't have told her about it if I wasn't coming. And also, please give all the sponsors another hand. They're incredible for sponsoring this event. Veterans for Cannabis, I'm really sad they can't be here because they actually do the cannabis grow therapy on their farm here in Georgia, so that's amazing for the veterans. And I wanted to represent Stanley because he couldn't be here today, so I wore his picture on my shirt. And I just want to recognize all the candidates. Also, if you don't mind standing up, everyone who's run this year and any other year in the elections that, like, seriously, Ted, Catherine, David Radaba, like, obviously when Babylon falls, you all have that job anyway, so thank you for being our leaders. I'm just gonna sing one song because I know we're a little bit constrained on time, and I don't want to mess up my 3 o'clock show here with this all running out of time. No, I really don't care. But this is a this is a song I wrote, if I can remember the chords, almost 20 years ago. That's how crazy I am. I'm a pretty crazy kid. I mean, at 12 years old, I traveled to Israel by myself. Speaking of stress, the Hebrew word for breath is the same as spirit. So what Josh was talking about earlier, breathing really does get you in touch with your spirit. So, I was going to sing something before I started singing. I'm just going to play as I talk, like a lounge singer. Yeah, if you want to hear me gab on or sing on, I have a YouTube channel, so I'll just leave you to that instead of here today. It's youtube.com, Aviva Sings Out. I produced this really long movie about hemp called Hempdemic, which actually exposes a lot of the Georgia hemp issues and the nefarious people at play behind closed doors. So I open those doors to as many as people want to be opened to that door. And in that movie, I talk about my journey with the very sad reality of oil spills. I would cry about that when I was a kid. All those little birdies covered in fuel. So when I found out that you can actually make fuel out of cannabis, that's what gave me the courage to actually start recording publicly and become a real musician. Now, I don't see a lot of professionals out there today. I actually see a lot of professionals out there. So thank you, by the way. I became a professional musician, whatever that means, because of this song, because I saw it as so important that we have cannabis fuel. Now, in that movie, I also talk about how that's the reason why it's illegal. So what I think in my little heart is that once we start actually using and creating hemp fuel, which it boggles me why we haven't, since hemp has been legal since 2014, but it's not surprising because the powers that be don't want us to use hemp fuel or gasoline, as I tell the children. So I think once we start using hemp fuel, they're just going to free cannabis everywhere because it's going to be futile for them to keep it illegal if that's the reason why they legalized it. Don't you want a car that runs on cannabis? Don't you want a car that runs on cannabis? Don't you want a car that runs on cannabis? Don't you want a car that runs? You got a nice life. You got a nice wife. You're working hard for your money. You got to slave to survive, but the gas prices never cease to rise. Don't you want a car that runs on cannabis? Don't you want a car that runs on cannabis? Don't you want a car that runs on cannabis? Don't you want a car that runs on cannabis? Yeah. Thank you guys. So here's the question. Can you run a car on cannabis? Yes, Henry Ford, George Washington Carver, they invented the design. How nice it would be to not smell like gasoline every time I take my car for a ride. Some say that's why they illegalized alcohol too. It's basically the same. Hemp ethanol is alcohol. Henry Ford grew 40,000 acres of hemp in Dearborn, Michigan. Where is that hemp today? I bet it had 1% THC. No limits. Now some people say that oil pollutes and drilling into the ground is killing our roots. And Mama Earth, she agrees. Use cannabis for paper and not a tree. Use cannabis for clothing instead of cotton. It even grows wild without those pesticides that give some cancer. Don't you want a car that runs on cannabis? Don't you want a car that runs on cannabis? Don't you want a car that runs on cannabis? Don't you want a car that runs on cannabis? So after I wrote this song, I just got an old Mercedes-Benz and converted it to veggie oil and went around the world, well, not the whole world, but the East Coast, sang this song. Fueled up on little biodiesel stations across the way. Met some very interesting people. inside my cannabis car for a little while. And some people say that oil pollutes, and drilling into the ground is killing our roots. All the farmers in Iraq might be digging up food, but instead they're drilling for oil. Is it the government's rule? Well, we can easily be a hero, especially now that hemp production is legal. Don't you want a car that runs on cannabis? Don't you want a car that runs on cannabis? Don't you want a car that runs on cannabis? Don't you want a car that runs on cannabis? Don't you want a car that runs on cannabis? Don't you want a car that runs on cannabis? Don't you want a car that runs on cannabis? Ooh, for love, ooh, you full of cannabis. Do 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 do. Your money's made of cannabis. Do 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 do. I think the pyramids are made of cannabis. Do 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 do. All right, everyone, you want to join me? I want you to do 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 do. So this is what we're doing in a very primal level. Do 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 do. We're not just doing and clapping. Do 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 do. We're creating a wave, a vibrational, beautiful, pure wave. Do 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 of hope and love and manifestation. Because as we feel it, do 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 do, and as we visualize it, do 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 do, we're creating it. Do 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 do. Come on, everyone! Everyone's not doing it. Let's feel it. Do 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 do. Visualize whatever you want. Cannabis growing in your yard. Do 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 do. One more time. Create that wave. Do 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 do. Woo! You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. So much beauty out there, I see, reflected in you. Thank you for all you do for cannabis. Really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Aviva. Make sure you go to YouTube and check out Aviva Sings Out. You can hear all of her music and see her movie, The Hempdemic. Thank you, Aviva. And it's Aviva and the Flying Penguins also. All right, I know we're running a little long today, but we've got a few more speakers, so bear with us.
Want to give away another prize?
Yeah, let's do a quick raffle. Let's do one more raffle. If you guys are interested to get into the raffle, as soon as the speakers are over, we're going to give away that skateboard and a couple more prizes, and then we're going to do the bag giveaway. So get your raffle tickets now.
Get your tickets. Get your tickets ready. We're fixing to have a drawing.
With that good Georgia country slang going on here, y'all. All right, the next number is 386-0996. 996.
We got a winner.
Cannabis tickets. All right, we got a winner. $5 winner. Go pick your prize out. Bring your ticket up here.
Oh yeah.
She's the official verifier of all tickets.
I wish they changed it to Norcal. I wish they would get rid of marijuana. Go to cannabis. Marijuana has incredibly racist roots. Marijuana was an adaptation of marijuana.
Okay, get your tickets out. We're going to do another one. And the magic shroom number is 3860971. 0971. Anybody? Check those tickets, guys. 0971 is your last four numbers. Okay. Well, we're going to have to go again here. All right, check your tickets. 0994 is your last four digits. All right, we've got the same winner. Okay, let's collect your ticket, and you collect your prize. Did you get the statement? No, I don't have statement. Okay, guys, we'll be doing another drawing after the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Watch your step there. Okay, so the next speaker to the stage, our next guest is, actually he just ran for the Department of Agriculture Commissioner as the Libertarian candidate for the Ag Commissioner, Mr. David Rodabaugh. He also supported and sponsored and donated to this event, and we appreciate him and Chair Code for their donation to this event.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming out today and for supporting this wonderful event. James, thank you for putting this on. And for all the veterans, thank you for serving. I want to talk about just briefly a couple of things. I did happen to lose the last election for Agriculture Commissioner, although I ran on a platform that was pretty straightforward. It was cannabis is agriculture. Believe it or not, that kind of got lost along the way. And it's interesting to hear the different speakers that came up here today, and from a religious standpoint, and from each different twist, legal standpoint, Dr. Uma from a health standpoint, right? Well, my take on this thing is from a personal rights standpoint, and that's really what came from all these veterans, donating their time and limbs and sanity in a lot of cases to allow us to do that. I do believe, honestly, that we the people have the right to make the changes that we want to have happen. That's something that we kind of got lost, right? Everyone started to believe that, we can't do this, we shouldn't do this, and everyone as a kind of group think just went into that same thought pattern of saying, I will be manipulated and have this plant taken away from me. So one of the things that I'm here to say is that even though I don't plan on running again for office anytime soon, I do plan on being fully involved in delivering safe, tested product to everybody in Georgia that wants it, right? And so that, thank you. That goes, it's kind of like me on this campaign trail. I'm saying I'm going to take some arrows for the front row here, but I believe it's our right to have, I believe that we've already legalized cannabis, through the hemp bill, right? We legalized every form of genetically modified cannabinoid that we can produce from the hemp bill. So why are we still playing around and fighting against regular THC and marijuana, right? It's all a ruse that's been put over us so that certain people who are very, very rich stand chance to get filthy rich, while we're all manipulated or prevented from getting product and access to things that we deserve, that's our right to have. And in some cases, if you think about it, the people that have, not only the veterans, but all the people who got a medical marijuana card in over the last 8 years have not been able to get any product legally in the state, right? That's, to me, that's a fraudulent form of government. How could they create a law that says you could do this? How could they have doctors say that this plant could help you and then for 8 years not give it to you? To me, that's almost vicious. right? That's more than incompetence. That's some kind of crazy, dementia or something. Because if you know it would work, and we do know it will work, why haven't we given it to us? And unfortunately, and this was really affirmed by this run for office, the whole thing is pretty sleazy. The whole political scene is sleazy. You heard Teresa mention about that group that pays for bills to be written. Our legislators, most of them don't even have a clue what's in the bills that they're signing, or even worse, promoting, right? You think of that, you think someone says, oh, I'm in this bill. Half the time they don't even know what the hell the bill's for, that their name is. And that's because they've been bought into this group, the CLEC, right? Is that ALEC, right? So there's a ton of stuff that we need to do, but I'm not here to be negative at all. I'm here to be very positive. I ran, and even though I lost, we made great headway. I talked about it at every one of my events. We all as people need to be loud and proud. We need to stop that kind of hiding behind, oh, it's the Bible Belt, or I'm a Baptist or a Catholic, or agnostic, whatever that story was that allowed you to say, I'm not going to talk about it. We need to end that. And we need to end that for a few reasons. We need to end that because the education is now beyond the idea of saying this is just a drug. It's much more than that. You heard people talk about this as a gateway, right? It really is. We don't know which way you're traveling. So don't point at me and say you're going the wrong way. But we do know that this will help people that are in that transition from either harder drugs or alcohol as a step to get away from it. So we need to stop stigmatizing that, because those people are suffering, right? A lot of them happen to be veterans, but those people are suffering. So this plant can do that. And interestingly enough, this plant can do so much more. And I say this about the science part because now, from a science standpoint and breaking down this plant, we really understand what each of those individual cannabinoids can do. Now we know that the sleep factor comes from something called CBN, and we can produce a product just for sleep with no side effects, no munchies, no waking up in the middle of the night driving your car crazy because you don't know what you're doing. Just sleep from this plant, right? Take away all those other things. CBC is something that people use to help cell regeneration. So we know that works. So that should be in everyone who has any issues with cancer or even just serious workouts. That's the right individual cannabinoid to do that. So the idea is when you smoke a joint, sometimes you might feel a number of different effects. They're not always exactly the one you want, other than changing your state of mind. From a science and education standpoint, now I can tell you exactly what each one of those can do. And what's cool is now we have product available to do that. So again, there's some big stuff coming. I want to talk about what I'm doing now, my business, and what I've donated a number of products for each of the gift bags here is from Cheerco. That company is an acronym for the Cannabis and Hemp Education Research Company. So I am going to be supplying products to people, but it's going to be tied in with education. So that's really what's going to make it a little bit different. Quality tested product available for everybody at a fair price, by the way, with the knowledge to use it properly, right? As well as the new things that are coming out, like these individual cannabinoids and those treatments. So follow cheerco.org. One of the things that we're going to do is we're going to eventually in the city reclaim a piece of contaminated property, and that's where our office is going to actually be at in a couple years. We're going to have our friends help us use fibrous hemp to clean the soil. We'll use the fibrous hemp that we there to create parking barriers and things like that for the facility. So it's going to be reclaiming this property, ultimately putting our business, our lives on the line. They're saying, we believe, look at what we've done. Throughout the process, giving you, again, access to knowledge and products. So I'm not going to go on a lot more. I'm very happy with the election. I wish I would have won. I would have made this much easier on all of us to get legalization done. But I'm not stopping at all. I'm moving forward. So look for more from me. Look for more from cheerco.org. And thank you, James. Thank you, veterans. And thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much. And it sucks that we couldn't get David in as the ag commissioner because I feel like he could have done some good things for Georgia. Hello? Okay, I hit the button. Hello? All right, we're good now. All right, we're gonna do one more drawing and then we got a couple more speakers. So if you haven't gotten a raffle ticket, get one quick.
Okay, guys, get your tickets out. You're looking for number 0983. Last 4 digits, 0983.
Turn it upside down. You got it upside down.
So who's got this? Oh, you got it, Wesley?
83. It's funny. I just typed 83 right here too.
Are you serious?
Just Catherine's house just to me. No, it's just looking it up to make sure. Oh, you scored before you had to go. Take a look. 5 more seconds.
All right, Wesley won. Wesley is actually the founder at Mellow Bear Honey. He was he donated some products here. Thank you, Wesley. I appreciate you, buddy. Yeah, come here.
Hey guys, I had to head out. I have a booth set up at Candler Park. We're selling some THC honey up there. One thing that we do is we go around to every festival, family festival, everything we do, we blast a big leaf on it. We're trying to, take away that stigma of it. I don't think I think somebody should see a flag that has maybe like Miller Coolers or Bud Light and look at that and feel the same way when they look at the plant. Not like in relation to each other, but it shouldn't be like, oh, that's bad, that's wrong, but here's this beer and this is good. And so we're trying to desensitize that stigma, but I just want to say the honeybees, that's what I stand for. They are very essential. If you guys have a local beekeeper, highly recommend you supporting him, supporting the bees. They are in a kind of decline right now, but they are, even in just last year, the London Institute of Science, they recognize them as the most important living thing in the whole entire world. So that's pretty cool to be working with them every day. But Albert Einstein said in 4 years, if all the honeybees die, we'll all die behind them. Now that was during Albert Einstein's day. Technology's advanced a little bit. Now they're saying 4.5 years. So we got like half more years, with all the technologies came out. So thank you all very much. Thank you to all the veterans. It's been incredible. I really just thank you all from the bottom of my heart for what you've done for the country. And thank you for letting me be here, James. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Wesley.
That's Wesley, man. Mellow Bear Honey. Check them out, man. They got great products. If you get in a bag, you're getting a bottle of Mellow Bear Honey to go home with today. All right, so next up we have this guy I've been following on social media for a little while and became friends, I guess, just in the last couple of years through social media. I never met him until today, but I'll tell you, following him on social media is pretty adventurous because this guy does a lot of crazy stuff, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for some of the things that he's done, and that also includes becoming the first dispensary here in the state of Georgia, up in Helen, Georgia, at Alpine Dispensary. This guy's a U.S. Army veteran, and if you look at his shirt, he just scaled Mount Everest. Mr. Josh Garrison, thank you so much for being here today.
I didn't really prepare anything for today. Really just going to tell you my story, how I got into cannabis and kind of how it all came to be and how Alpine Dispensary came to be and how we get to help a lot of veterans. So, last night was our 4th annual Veterans Day party, so pardon me, I am a little hungover, but life is good. So from the time I was 19 years old, I had a top secret SCI, Special Compartmentalized Information Clearance. I couldn't touch cannabis. I smoked a little bit in high school, never even bought any, just passing a joint around at a party, whatever. It wasn't part of my life. And over the next 20 years, I did over 50 deployments with the military and the CIA to Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, several of the not so nice places in the world. Over about a 13-year period. And then when I quit deploying, my body just kind of fell apart. All the cortisol levels that had built up and just the damage that had been done to my body. I was about 70 pounds heavier. My worst blood pressure reading was 230 at 160. And my daily joint pain was about an 8. My daily joint pain was about an 8. So my body was just absolutely falling apart. I was fortunate enough to end up out in Washington State on a trip, and this is after I stopped deploying in 2015. And I was in a legal state with recreational cannabis, so I went in the dispensary and bought a vape pen. Took it back to the cabin we were staying in that night, hit it 3 or 4 times, and instantly felt my PTSD just let go. I felt normal again. It was absolutely amazing. Now 5 minutes later, I was completely stoned out of my mind and curled up in the corner, freaking out. It was not knowing the molecules, not knowing the dosing. There was just, didn't know what I was doing. So I used it recreationally a little bit after that, but I wasn't that into the high. It was just too much for me with my PTSD, with my anxiety. I was seeing the VA shrinks. They had me on they tried every single pill that they had, and the pills, to make the pills work better, the side effects lasted for years. They were just absolutely horrible. So I kind of gave up on all of that, and then fortunately the hemp bill passed in 2018, and a friend of mine sold me a CBD card. And I was driving home from the store, hit it 3 or 4 times. I felt that same release, and I didn't get high. And I called my wife at the time and said, we're going to go to the store and sell this stuff. And about 3 months later, Alpine Dispensary was born on April 20th of 2019. We now have over 600 products. I do a 25% military discount for veterans. And we've given away over $300,000 in military discounts. So the fact that I get the help out of it, it's a huge part to me. And then last year, kind of thanks to COVID, I turned the news off. It just got so bad. I mean, it was just such BS that I finally just said, you know what, I'm turning it off. And I cut the news off, and my life started to evolve, and it started to evolve rapidly. I felt the last parts of my PTSD really starting to disappear to the level that I now feel that I'm cured of my PTSD. So I put together, fast forward a couple months, and a friend of mine was able to get us on the team with Garrett Madison to go climb Mount Everest. And I thought, what a closing, how could you, show that you're doing any better than go climb Mount Everest? So we signed up for Everest, and then over about a 10-month period, I lost 15 guys to suicide out of my organization. And that's when that, 22 veterans a day really just, it hit home. I mean, it's an incredibly big number. And signed up for Everest. I was talking with a good friend of mine. She's a social media influencer for NASA and SpaceX. So she's that connected to the world. And she had never heard the 22 a day initiative. She didn't know about the 22 veterans a day committing suicide. So I decided to link the two together, and that's why I came up with Everest 2022 a day. And dedicated my climb to just raising awareness. We didn't raise any money. I didn't start any organizations, but just to make people aware that this is happening and at the scale that it's happening. If you change that number to 21, that's 365 lives a year that we save right there. It's absolutely amazing. So I dedicated the climbs to raising awareness for the 22 veterans a day, and it was just an absolutely epic adventure. We spent 2 months climbing Everest. It's a huge process. It's a long expedition. And then I was fortunate enough 22 hours later to summit Mount Lhotse, the 4th highest mountain in the world. So I can't thank cannabis enough for saving my life, for letting me help others, that are in the same position as me. And I put together a whole 6-part video series of how I overcame it. But the 2 big steps I want every veteran to take away with you today: make sure that, 1, turn the news off. That's step 1. And in the videos, that's the first one. But the last one is always keep a mission out in front of you. Have something that you're looking forward to. Have that next expedition. I'm going down to Ecuador in January to climb a couple more volcanoes. It doesn't have to be Everest, it doesn't have to be that big, but always have that objective that you had in the military, and keep that order that you had in the military. Don't come home, they tell you got to reintegrate into society. Forget that. Make society step up to you. Society's all screwed up. We were the ones doing it right. Keep doing it that way. Keep that objective in front of you, and carry on. Thank you.
Josh Garrison, Alpine Dispensary, check them out. They were gracious enough to donate a lot of products to this event, so everybody's going to take home some of his products, and go give him a like, check out their store, check out their website. Thank you, Josh. I didn't know that he was such a badass as well. CIA, really? Well, that's awesome. So I've already introduced this next guest, and so I don't really need to introduce him much, and I'm going to let him talk about his organization and what he does. But once again, thank you to Daniel Louis Crumpton and Neil Schloss, Cannabis, Total Wellness, and Zen in the Car for making all this food. If you guys would like seconds, there is extra food up here, so help yourselves. And all right, now I'm trying to get some too now. All right, Daniel, you're up, my friend.
You see that? Jesus Christ.
We talked about him earlier.
Hey, everybody. As I said earlier, I do have a lot of titles, and now I'm, going to give you a new title. Because it's always confusing when people see me. They're like, okay, is he here to represent Zen in the Car, or CannAscends, or his book, or what? So I had to streamline myself. I'm zeninthecar.com, powered by CannAscends. So if you want to follow my work and the work of my crew, and how we follow liberty across the country and advocate for cannabis rights, go to zeninthecar.com, and there are thingies that you can click and subscribe, and you will be assimilated into my collective. But I forgot to bless the food, but my God is so super duper awesome that we could pray and he can send it back in time. Oh, the food's good. Now it's story time, and so I think how I want to start this is to tell you a story, because we all have a story of what brought us to cannabis. Veterans Day is a very important day for me. So I want to bring it back to you soldiers, and as I said earlier, you are still soldiers. I am the son of 2 foreign war veterans. My dad, at the age of 15, lied to get out of Georgia and joined the Navy, and he was stationed on the USS Iowa, the Gray Ghost. And the Gray Ghost, you can look it up. I didn't know any of this stuff until after the fact, but it was the baddest motherfucker in the fleet. And I like to say, my dad was on the deck of that ship fighting for this country and this document, and the vibration of that artillery that he fired and that was fired upon made the marrow in my bones. So I never served, but I had the example of someone who did serve so boldly. When Vietnam came up, he re-enlisted in the Air Force and did it again. And so my father, up until the time that he could be my friend, was always my hero. And I've always reverenced veterans, because there's an unspoken commonality of what people who have post-traumatic stress. Dr. Engel, where are you at?
Right here.
Not disorder, stress. There's just a common vibration that we all have. And we can nod, and we don't have to say much, right? And my father lived with that. And they didn't have resources for him to deal with it. He just had to cope. They called it shell shock. And in February of 2015, prior to this, his arthritis, because he was getting up in age, was so debilitating, so painful, that it was hard to sit and have coffee with him. He would wince in pain. And I was a Southern Baptist Sunday school teacher at the time, if you can believe it. So cannabis was something that just wasn't an option. But I could not bear to see my father in pain. And he wouldn't take painkillers or big pharma like this casket filled with legal cocaine. He wouldn't take those things. And to alleviate it, I said, Dad, and I used improper verbiage at the time. I said, Dad, if I got some weed, would you smoke it? And I knew that my father was in pain, because he looked at me and he said, yes, son. Well, on the black market, you're a Sunday school teacher, it takes too much time to find the medicine. And by the time I could get any street weed, my dad had taken so much over-the-counter acetaminophen that he developed an ulcer above his heart. And he passed away while I was giving him CPR. And from that moment, I always wanted to understand my father's trauma, and in that moment I inherited post-traumatic stress and became one with my father, as it were, as we all are just characters of that story, really. And in that moment, I became infuriated with the state and the church, because let me get this straight. My father could have went down to his doctor and got a prescription for legal cocaine, went to Walgreens, had it filled, but for going to get a plant that we all require in our bodies, he would be labeled a criminal. And that made me angry. It put me in fight mode before I knew I had PTSD. Excuse me, Dr. Uman. Stress. And so I had already been in the Ron Paul Liberty movement, which is why I always reference this, because this is what you guys fought for. And so this is near and dear to my heart, and this is my shield, and this is my sword. Wedding cake. Right. So after that, I became a cannabis activist in Warner Robins. Well, for me, it was simple. I didn't think that it was a useful expense of my time, resources, or energy to get into a system to fight something that we already have a right to do. We already have a right. We just have to know it and then live within it. So for me, my mission is, all right, time is of the essence because 22 veterans a day are blowing their brains out because they don't have access to it. Time is ticking. Every second matters. So my mission, and I believe all of our missions, should be this. You get the medicine to the people who need it as soon as possible. As soon as possible. So I was like, well, I'm living this. You know, I'm not going to listen to any statutes or acts that are only given the force of law by mutual consent. And I don't consent. I got this. With the supremacy clause that says any inferior entity that writes a stupid law that contradicts my right, I can just ignore it. But how do I get everyone else who came out of liberty or who's starting to wake up to their rights, how do I get them on board? And then one day, I got a call from this guy, Ted. I forget what it was. And I said, hey, kind of tongue-in-cheek, how are you activists up in the Atlanta area doing with getting instant access to medicine? And something to the effect, he said, some crazy Yankee businessman from up north named Neil Schloss figured it out. And I said, do tell. And he sent me to cannasense.com. And me being a legal nerd and going to knowing words and knowing the Constitution, I read the model, the legal model, which is on the website. So please go to cannasense.com to see our legal model. And I understood it very quickly.
I wrote it.
Ted, everybody give Ted a round of applause. And buddy, I was on it. And so I want to thank you, Ted, for sending my life in a direction that I never could have expected. And I was in the beginning stages of the CannaSense Collective, which is a 501c3 mutual benefit nationwide collective, where we do exactly what my mission is. We get the medicine to the people who need it instantly through supreme law. And we've developed the technology so where you can log in on your phone anywhere, anytime, any state, regardless of statutes and acts in your state, order your lab-tested medical cannabis and psilocybin. Soon, we'll be doing San Pedro and other sacred plants. We've integrated the philosophy of liberty from the Ron Paul movement into a brilliant mechanism to do this. Because here's the thing with us PTS survivors. We stay in fight or flight mode, and what I've been trying to tell people in Georgia is we have to remember that even though the fight is over, for us it's not always over. We have to be told. But from my point of view, and from the point of view of CannaSense, the fight's over. All of us can log in, have our medicine shipped to us within 3 days, whatever intake method it is. And so, when you are a part of something that is cutting edge, it's what's the trailblazing, frontier. You know, I've seen everything, and Team CannaSense is back here, and we have been through every red tape, everything that you could possibly imagine. I've been asked every question. How is it legal? How is it lawful? And I'll answer all those questions after the event, but I've done it before, and all the information is on the website. So, since that time, we have achieved, and it has to be divine providence, some monumental things. We help with cancer research, children's hospitals. We are proud to offer veterans discounts. You upload your VA card or your discharge papers and we honor you with a discount. Cancer survivors too. We give away $20,000 in college scholarships every quarter. We cultivate responsible use. And I'm happy to say, because it came across my desk first, a veteran, a Marine out of the state of Delaware came to us for assistance, and CannaSense has actually been able to work with our veteran Marine to get his medical cannabis paid for by one of the largest insurance companies in the world. In the world. How about that? So that's very impressive, and I'm just happy to be a part of it. And I'll tell you another thing is that we do incorporate, we think it's a multifaceted approach to this war on cannabis and our plant and our wellness. And so we approach every single problem in a multifaceted way. And we also know that one way is the best defense is a good offense. That we know our rights have been infringed upon, and it's time that we collectivize, like Scotty from Star Trek would say, you can't break a stick in a bundle. And what we've actually done, Dave DePuma back here, everybody give him a hand, because this past week, he served the borough of Hightstown, New Jersey, a $42.0 million lawsuit because they trespassed upon your rights and our rights. And we're going to win, because we always win, because we have divine providence at our back. And so it's been an adventure, and I'll tell you, whenever I got on the toll-free number, because I do patient support, so if you reach out to us through live chat, through our toll-free number, chances are you'll either get me or Mr. DePuma back here. The first patient that I ever took was a veteran. And while I was on the phone with him at 2 a.m. in the morning, he had a loaded pistol in his hand. And he said, Daniel, the first person that I killed overseas was a 6-year-old boy. And my child just turned 6. And every time I see my own son, I'm triggered. And I told this soldier, I said, you give me 1 week to get you your medicine. 1 week. You hang on for 1 week. A week later, his wife called me. And she said, is this Daniel? I said, it is. She said, last week you spoke to him, I don't want to say his name. And I said, I did. And she started crying on the phone. And of course, my jaw clenched. And through her tears, that woman said, I want to thank you and your collective, because my husband got his medicine, and for the first time since he got back from overseas, he really got back. And that put the needle in the vein, buddy. The needle in the vein. So our mission is real simple. I'm not going to go fight Atlanta and asking them for permission to do some shit that you guys fought for to let me do anyway. What I'm going to do, and what I encourage all of you to do, is just act out your rights and look at this eclectic group. If they come at us, all of us together, with our powers combined, we got Catherine here on the legal front, we have ministers, we have technologists, we have cultivators, all of us are creators. Let them come at us. Let them come at us. And guys, the Cannabis Total Wellness, I passionately speak about it and passionately promote it, because I do believe it is divine providence. I do believe that. I've seen too many miracles, and these people back here can tell you that's true. Too many impossible things, too many lives saved. Tens of thousands of patients across this country. We also ship to South Korea, which is cool, because that was my devastation. And the Dominican Republic, I think we should have shipped there, yeah? And we're shipping to Germany soon, nationwide. It's a beautiful thing. And so we're also happy to say that the past year, we are offering psilocybin as well. So for psilocybin treatment, for reparations of trauma, we have that too, man. It's awesome. And you can reach us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, brother. Even if it's just to talk, to vomit, we're there for you. And I love all of you beautiful people. And I hope that you truly check it out. It's real simple. There's QR codes back there. There's swag that's all free. Scan it. Don't forget it. We're 3 entities. Cannabis, the collective of 501c3, Cannabis Foundation, which does the charity work and the legal defense. And now we just opened up Cannabis cultivators for farmers and vendors such as yourself. So if you want your own medicine that you make to go nationwide to do the mission, which is get your medicine to the people who need it as soon as possible, then please take some t-shirts, take some flyers, take some business cards, find me on Facebook, find Dave on Facebook, get our contact information, and together we will not break. We will not break. And so I appreciate all of you veterans from the bottom of my heart. You are not alone. Your sacrifices were most certainly not in vain. They're not. And thank you, James. And also I want to say this, we all know, we're all activists, that trauma or horrible situations are what unfortunately give birth to an activist. And so, where's Tiffany at? Where you at? She's way over there. So you guys, most of you have met her. This is Tiffany. She's the newest member of Zen in the Car. And right now, guys, we're going to need your help. So please connect with us. The love of her life. It's a Romeo and Juliet story, truly. A very talented hip-hop artist named Galaxy is currently sitting in Bibb County in a pit, in a cage. Hey, Galaxy! And his civil rights have been trampled upon because of our plan. And what we are doing at the Cannabis Foundation is we are preparing a legal team to defend him and use him as a spear to stab the state of Georgia in the heart, because we will. And so please, everybody show her some love. Tell Galaxy, hey everybody, he's on the phone right now in Bibb County holding. Galaxy, we got you, buddy. Thank each and every one of you. You are all divine sparks here for a purpose. Your trauma matters if it helps one life, if it saves one life. And so, namaste. I love each and every one of you. New York, good night. I want to thank that crazy Yankee Drew Neil Schloss up in New Jersey. Those Yankees ain't so bad. He's a great guy. And I'll tell you one other thing about Neil Schloss. I've never met anyone with more nobility, honor, and dignity than that man. And he developed this from the passion of his heart, from the loss of his mother of breast cancer. This is his baby. And I am honored and proud to have him as a friend, a brother, and as a mentor. And so thank you guys, and thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. And thank you, Cannabis, and thank you, Zen in the Car. We appreciate you guys picking up a check for the food. Next up, we've only got three more speakers, so bear with me. Next up is a U.S. Navy veteran, I believe, and she is also the founder at the Atlanta Academy of Cannabis Science, Yolanda Henderson.
Army, I'm sorry. So sorry.
Army, I apologize.
Every service wrong.
Alright. I believe that's great. Alright. Well, thank you so much, James, for that introduction. Army. Alright. So, I am just thankful to be here. I'm thankful to be standing before you all. I am the owner of the Atlanta, Georgia Academy of Cannabis Science. We had a cannabis school, y'all, here in Georgia. All right, so I am the owner, founder of the Gift of Life Community Home, which is our nonprofit that actually had to do some kind of, because of cannabis in the name, go under the umbrella of the Gift of Life Community Home. So that is a little bit about me, where I'm from, Dallas, Texas, of course. I am integrated into Georgia. So I was born and raised on a farm. I did country, western, I did boots, hats, and I love hats. So they also call me the hat lady. This morning I had a choice. I had a choice to put on my hair, or put on my jewelry, or put on this American flag vest that I have on. I had a choice, right? This morning I had a choice to either take my vitamins that I take every day, or go into my medicine cabinet where I keep all of my old veterans medications. Take that choice. I had that choice. I had that choice only for a certain amount of reasons. I also had a choice a couple of weeks ago to early vote or to vote on election day. Who to vote for, if I wanted to be a Republican or a Democrat, if I wanted to be a Demo-Republican, as we saw what happened in Georgia with the runoff election that we had going on, right? So I had a choice. There's some choices that we're able to make, right? That's whatever we want to make, but there's other choices that we don't have. And that's why I am an advocate for this plan. That's why I am an advocate by education of this plan. So a little bit about my background. I am an MD. A lot of people have heard of a MD, but not of an ND. How many of y'all heard of an indie? Not a lot of hands. A few of y'all know what an indie is, right? So what I do is I talk natural medicine. I talk about what plants, hint, hint, to help your body catch up with homeostasis. I talk about the cactus plant. I can talk about freely about the turmeric herb that's a plant. I can talk about a lot of things, but a lot of people don't come to me because of what? Anybody knows? I get the end stage patients that are almost stage 4 cancer, you know, things that there's really a cure for, but they don't want us to know. I talk about those type of things to my patients, and I tell them there's a way, because they come to me distraught at that time. They're distraught like we were in the military when we found out we were going to Iraq. All right? We talk to those patients and we help those patients. Now, over at the Gift of Life Community Home is where I actually do all of my patient talk. I talk to my patients and teach my patients. As an ND, we not only treat the patient, but we educate the patient. So now they're students, right? Why I got into education, why everybody needs to know about education. So over at the Gift of Life, we teach our patients how to take a plant, what's included in that plant, where that plant is from, where to grow your own plants, how to grow your own plants rather, and where to grow, where to get your farm-raised plant medicine from. So that's what I do as an ND. I love my job because I'm able to help those, like I said, those with stage 4 cancer, those with MS, those with every other kind of ailment, okay? So going into all of that education, I feel that there's not enough known about an ND as a doctor, where there should have been. We have some advocacy to do on that end as well as the plants. There should be, like Dr. Uma was saying, cannabis as a first choice and not as a last choice to all of these health ailments. We already know, as all of the other speakers or everybody knows already, that there is patents in the state of Georgia. All right, I came here with my family on a hope that my daughter, who was born with a brain injury from a forceps, would be able to get medical cannabis for her epilepsy. For myself, who suffered from PTSD, somebody said don't say D, but PTSD, there was times where suffering with my condition, with MS, that I didn't know if I was going to be able to get up. But I did find the plants to be a healer. I found that we could get plant medicine that could do the same thing that we wanted it to do for our own health. My husband was actually the first person that got me connected to cannabis. When I told him, when I came back from the military, I got injured, and he was like, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, I can't go back. He was like, well, why don't you try this? And I was like, no, I can't try that. You know why I can't try that? Because I am a church girl, and church girls are told not to ever smoke that cannabis stuff, that weed, that dope. And so I was thinking to myself, like, okay, should I do what he did, or should I not? So I went back and forth with it for a little while. I battled with it for years. And I said, well, you do that, I'm a drink, And then, I decided to go to school. My mom actually had colon cancer, and they gave her 6 months to live, so she started preparing us to go into the baby, to the person that was going to keep us. We got it like a foster parent. And I mean, it was that point that when she was healed from her colon cancer, that I thought back and I reminded myself, my mom did this natural stuff. But here I am, I done went to school, I done thought I knew better, And I then went to nursing school and started, trying to become a nurse. And what you learn in nursing school is pharmacology. We learn every drug there is over in that casket. We learned it front and back, and I can tell you what it did is side effects that were bad. And I have to forgive myself every day going into that industry. I'm not knocking anybody that does, okay? But my thing is, I can't give that stuff to anybody. So here I am, decided not to go into medical school, but to go into medical school plus with the plant medicine and the naturopathy. So I know both sides. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not that kind of doctor that'll tell you a Tylenol don't work. I'm not that kind of doctor that'll tell you turmeric don't work. I'm gonna tell you, you have a choice. And that's what should be in legislation. That's what should be in Washington, D.C. It should be a choice. And the advocacy does not stop with us not having that choice, because like I said, there was a lot of people that voted Demo Republican on the ballots the other day, and you should be able to, if you want to wear blonde hair, wear blonde hair. If you want to wear blue hair. If you want to wear a dress, wear a dress. If you want to wear a skirt, wear a skirt. That should be all of our own choice. I thank you all for listening. I thank you for the speakers who came before me for all of their great information. I thank my husband, I thank James, I thank all of the vendors that is here, and I just want y'all to continue to pray, because this is year 2022. All right, for every 22 veterans that die per day, this is the year that we say no more to deaths due to suicide. We will, in the year 22, for those 22 veterans a day, continue to educate, continue to advocate, and to continue the mission that we have today. And thank you all again.
Thank you, Yolanda Henderson, Army veteran. Thank you so much. And check out the Atlanta Academy of Cannabis Science and the Gift of Life Community Church. Next up is a true voice for liberty, and she has done a lot for the community, and she's actually gotten a lot of people out of jail for cannabis offenses. And she actually just ran for House District number 83, Catherine Bernard.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll be brief because we've already had so many wonderful speakers tell you all about the benefits of cannabis and just how ludicrous it is that we're even in the position of arguing about whether or not people should be threatened with cages and chains for growing or using or trading a plant. So I'm glad we at least all agree on that. So I'm here to tell you from the legal and political perspective, we are winning and we can win some more, but we need to all feel empowered. And having these veterans, having these people who have served our country so honorably and made it possible for us to exercise the freedoms that we do, you are the key to this with our legislators and with the public at large here in Georgia. So from the political side, I did just run for House District 83. I did just come in second as the Republican nominee, but I was really encouraged by how many people were with me on the platform of ending the entire drug war. It's not a partisan issue, it's a constitutional issue, because even for people who don't want to personally use drugs that are considered illegal, we are destroying our Constitution and our Fourth Amendment by the laws that have sprung up around it since the first prohibition started 100 years ago. So I wanted to encourage people that when you're talking to your legislators, don't worry about Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian. This is something that everyone in Georgia can get behind. And in fact, a lot of people seem to think that we have already gone further on the laws than we really have. And so that's where I come in on the legal side. I am an advocate of jury nullification and for fully informed jurors. Article 1, Section 1, Paragraph 11 of the Georgia Constitution specifically says that in all criminal cases, the jury shall be the judges of the law and the facts. rights. That means that every time someone serves on a jury here in Georgia, they are allowed to say not guilty because they don't think that the person should be in trouble for growing or using or trading cannabis. But we only understand this if we know about it. So please share it with your friends. This is not some fringe radical idea. This is at the core of the right to trial by jury and our constitutional practices here in the United States. So be proud of it. Embrace our opportunity as citizens to do the right thing for our fellow residents of Georgia. And anytime you have the honor of being called to a jury, serve on that jury and tell them we don't think there's anything wrong with someone peacefully growing or trading or using a plant. You have that power. And if you personally are ever in a situation where you or a loved one are threatened by the police for your cannabis use, remember your rights. You don't have to talk to the police. You can call a lawyer. You can find me at justice.law. That's our website. And please, feel free to join our mailing list and stay in touch there. But remember, you have rights and you have a community behind you. There is so much that makes people feel stigmatized and alone when you are in the clutches of the government. But just know that you have more and more people around the state, around the country, around the world who are standing with you and are looking forward to the opportunity to stand with you and tell the world plant medicine is a sacrament. Plant medicine is something that we should all have access to no matter what. So just remember, you have the rights as a human being to put whatever you want to in your own body. You don't have to make the argument that it's healthy or important from a medical perspective, although of course it is. That's your right as an individual, as a citizen of the United States. And so exercise that right, claim it in the legal framework, claim it in the political framework, claim it in the cultural framework. And it's an honor to get to address so many wonderful folks. And I wanted to remind you, you have that power. I'll tell you one little inspiring story that I got to share at Aviva's wonderful Halloween Fest last week, which is a man in Dublin, Georgia, who was growing what he believed was industrial hemp. It ended up testing at about 0.6% THC. Well, unfortunately, we had some officers think, well, we found some pot. They spent tremendous resources on extensive surveillance, and they finally caught this dangerous gardener, this man who was coming to tend his plants. And they arrested him for manufacturing marijuana, which is something that can get you 30 years in prison in Georgia. I mean, what, are you going to charge God for growing a plant in the ground? But the good news that I have for y'all is that we filed a motion to suppress, and we showed that the officers had no right to be on that land, and we forced the state to dismiss that case entirely. So he's not on probation. He's not having to suffer through the loss of his constitutional rights. He is a free man who has every right to going back to his gardening and doing what will serve his community and the people of Georgia. And so I stand with Zavaris Jackson. I stand with my friend Giovanni McCoy, who we got a not guilty verdict at trial back in 2018 for when he admitted to growing cannabis for medical use. There are people all across the state ready to stand with you, excited to stand with you, honored to stand with you. So I'm one of them. Thank you so much.
Catherine Bernard. Like I said, Voice for Liberty. If you need help, she can at least put you in the right direction if she can't help you herself. So we are down to actually just one more speaker. We were going to go down to the VA Medical Center, but we're going to cut it a little bit short. No, wait, we're not short at all. We're way over the allotted time. So we're going to do the candlelight vigil up here. If you've got a ticket, come see me over there in just a second, and I'll get you your bag for all the veterans. And I would like to just say thank you to all the sponsors, to all the speakers, to all the donors, and everybody that came out today. I really appreciate it. And most of all, thank you to all the veterans. So the last person up is a dear friend who always supports this event, and she actually ends the event every time with an awesome candlelight vigil. And she's just awesome. I love her to death. Melitza Andrzejewski, aka Falcon. You're up.
I've not done much public speaking this year. It seems I've been walking a tightrope of love and hate and risk being arrested for inciting a riot. So, I pinky swear with my fingers crossed I promise to behave myself. I promise. We honor the 22 veterans that commit suicide every day. We honor what that number represents. I believe every day I wake up breathing in a free country that every day should be Veterans Day. Because we don't like talking about the fact that the suicide rate among active veterans is skyrocketing, and they're also climbing in civilians. In 2020, we had over 46,000 suicide deaths. That's one every 11 minutes. I would never dare mention the reefer madness and false flags in a 2022 veteran suicide report that stated cannabis rates were higher than alcohol and all other illegal drugs combined. I would never dare tell you something no other pastor would say. Slavery was not abolished, it was just reassigned into three more powerful, more profitable forces. That was prohibition, private prisons, and probation. I'll never be silent. I will always speak up. And if that makes me a hate group, well, so be it. Because the sad truth is, if I registered as a permitted hate group, I would have every news outlet here, I'd have more people, and I'd have the police here directing traffic. And that doesn't matter whose God you believe in or who you voted for. And there is something terribly, terribly wrong with that picture. It's always been about changing the world, changing a veteran's world, to starting a fire, to being a shining ray of hope, to shining a light in the darkness, and to reaching the lost, to being an army behind the United States military, because no one ever deserves to be told how they treat their mental illness, especially a United States veteran. We need to unite together and remember what we're fighting for. Remember the mission. God, veterans, mental illness, addiction, and freedom. Everyone's talking about heaven like it's a Super Bowl game, paying thousands of dollars for a ticket that's already been paid. Again, I ask you to unite together. We cannot be divided. Our veterans are at crisis. We have to unite together and remember the big picture. Remember why you started in the cannabis activism, and remember that everyone needs you to be a voice for the voiceless, to be a voice in the darkness. 22 of those candles over there represent the 22 veterans that commit suicide every day. The 23rd candle represents the civilian that commits suicide every day. The 24th candle represents our veteran's spouse, because they are the ones that are the true hero. They are the ghosts that sit on the sideline that watch their spouse and their loved ones fall apart. They become our counselors, our 911 crisis. They're the ones that sit silently on that sideline when the real SWAT team and the real hostage negotiator has their spouse cornered. And sadly, they develop secondary PTSD. They develop mental illness. And unfortunately, there is very little support out there for them. So we need to remember them also. So What I'd like for everyone to do is to please grab a candle. Do not light them until I tell you to light them. Please grab a candle and we're gonna follow me to the coffin. So please grab a candle and follow me.
I'll stand behind you.
Okay. Everybody here? I wanted to do this candlelight vigil during the day because even during the brightest of days, there's still a veteran that's in total crisis. Every day there's thousands of people that are in total darkness. We're here to shine light in the darkness and tell them there is a better way. There is better ways. They're not alone. So please light your candles and tell them they are not alone. We are here. We are the army behind the United States military. They are not alone. Their voice will never be silent. We will always be here. Please, sound off for the fallen, unknown soldier.
Tom McCain.
Kelly Hammond.
Jim Cooley.
Ray Tanner and too many others.
Your voice will never be forgotten. You will never be alone. You will always be here, and I will always have your six. The floor is open to anyone who has anything